Hey guys, what's up? I'm excited to announce the initiation of my new podcast, Larsluster Conversations. In this first episode, I got a friend of mine from California named Dustin Garner on the show. Me and Dustin just met on a camping trip once, and we just really hit it off and kept having really long conversations about interesting subjects. And I figured he would be the perfect guest to test out making a podcast. I hope everyone's gonna be as excited about this new podcast as I am, because it's been a lot of fun recording the first episode, and I hope I can keep making them. I also got some interesting visuals made for the podcast, so I hope you enjoy those as well. And if not, then give me some feedback and maybe I'll change them later. If you don't want to listen to the whole 3-hour podcast, totally understandable, I get that. But hey, if you have a friend who might be interested in what we're talking about, then I would love for you to recommend it to them and just say, hey, this is a podcast, maybe you could listen to it. Oh yeah, and before we get into the show, I just wanted to mention that we recorded the podcast episode in the living room where I was living in California. So a bunch of my housemates were like walking around and using the kitchen and stuff. Just so you guys know. Should be good.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
First time recording a podcast?
Yeah, it has.
It is?
Yeah. How about you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
First time I've ever been on a podcast. But feel like I've done similar things.
Okay.
Like, I've done like interviews that were recorded. Like, I was in a paper once. And I did an interview for like someone who were doing their bachelor project, and they needed to interview people in my job.
That's cool.
Yeah. How about you?
I haven't done an interview per se, but I was thinking of starting a YouTube channel and doing like a vlog type thing.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Dude, you should. I'll for sure follow you if you make a
thanks.
vlog.
I was thinking of just doing like ranking videos, but ranking completely random things. Like every time Plankton tries to steal the Krabby Patty formula, like how well they go. Stuff like that.
Just like pop culture or random stuff.
Just completely random stuff. Whatever I think I want to make a ranking video on.
That sounds hilarious. Potentially hilarious. Feels like there would be a lot of editing to do that.
Oh yeah, definitely. I used to do a lot of video editing.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. Back in high school, I was in a TV media class, and I did editing for like the newscast at my school.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. It was pretty fun. I also like making music videos.
Oh, nice. Yeah, because you did show me that guy with like the amazing music videos.
Yeah, Bill Wirtz.
Bill Wirtz.
He's really good.
Yeah, I'd actually kind of forgotten about him until you mentioned like video editing.
Oh yeah.
Now. But yeah, it's definitely his editing brings it to a very different level.
Because it's so synchronized with the music that he makes, it's really impressive. Yeah.
That is for sure.
That's one of the things that I really like doing, getting a music video and just synchronizing editing to it, because it's so aesthetically pleasing to have the beat go with the cuts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't it hard though?
Not that hard, because like with just with like video editing equipment like Premiere or Final Cut, you can just drag the videos until you get to the point that's right next to the beat.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. It's not as bad with digital as it probably was with manual film.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Manual sounds exhausting.
Mm-hmm.
So, I can't remember. I think we did talk about that I started a YouTube channel recently.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
Have you been making any more cooking videos?
No more cooking videos, but I'm probably going to once I get back.
Okay. Cool.
Because I've been like trying to just get everything in order here.
Mm-hmm.
And also like this kitchen is a little. It's been cool to have a kitchen while I've been here, but yeah, this kitchen is not the biggest and most pleasant to be in.
Right.
The advantage is that it is very, because it is so small, it is very compact, so it's easy to like reach for stuff.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, the university apartments aren't gonna be the biggest, unfortunately.
No, well, it's not. It's not so much the size, but just like the cooktops are shitty and all the equipment is pretty shitty, except for the knives, which were really good.
Okay.
Like the
Those
chopping
don't
board.
exactly come with the kitchen, though.
Yeah, no, I had to buy those.
Yeah.
And but like just the cooktops and it's kind of like a little dirty, and the microwave is a little dirty, and the fridge is super overcrowded, and everyone just leaves stuff about. So it's just like you have to move stuff,
Oh, man.
and yeah.
Yeah. Were you planning on making any more videos before you leave Santa Barbara, though?
I have one recorded that I might release. I'm not, because it's kind of like a bit of a ranty thing. Or, I don't know, a rant, more like just me talking about a topic and like my ideas around it.
Oh, okay. That sounds interesting, though.
Yeah, I hope so, but I'm not sure if I want to just have it as like a vlog or if I want to edit in like visual, make it more like a visual essay and adding like images that to make like what I'm saying more clear, or if I want to just have it as like a rant or a conversation. So I'm probably gonna have to watch through it tomorrow and see if I'm releasing it like I recorded it, or if I'm gonna do more with it.
Okay.
Yeah, but I have it up now. I use an editing software that's called DaVinci, which is pretty cool. It's right here.
Oh, yeah.
So this is free and it's super good. It has like color mastering where you can see the levels.
Oh, wow.
And stuff, and you can just like figure out if it's peaking too high, and you can change like the saturation and the hue and stuff. So even though this shot is a little overexposed, it's still not as bad as it could have looked, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just like that small little tweak in post is pretty nice, and also. For audio, I just use this, which you might have
Audacity?
seen. Audacity, yeah.
Okay.
Which is also free, and it's like it's pretty simple. It's very oriented around functionality rather than like looks and
What can it
aesthetics and
do?
stuff. So I just use it for it can do all sorts of stuff, but I use it for adding compression and equalization to the noise or the audio.
Okay.
Which helps tremendously in just giving it that volume and richness and
Right.
like, depth and punch.
Okay.
Because even well recorded audio tends to be a little, it can be a little up and down in volume and feel a little distant unless you're really on the mic when you record it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just adding a little bit of bringing everything up and together, and I don't actually know exactly what it does, but it definitely improves the sound.
All right.
So,
Cool.
yeah, that's my setup. But damn, it takes a long time to edit these videos
Makes
if I want to.
sense.
And I'm not even good at it. Maybe it takes shorter time once I'm good at it.
It just takes practice, really.
Yeah, I'm sure it
All
does.
these softwares just over time you get used to the different things that they can do and the shortcuts.
Yeah.
And it really helps.
I'm sure it's easier to just see what needs to be done
Yeah.
quicker once you've had some experience.
Definitely. Oh, I found editing so fun once I got into it.
Uh-huh.
Like, I really got into Final Cut Pro and Premiere.
Yeah.
Just over time. They're just kind of really fun to use when you have a lot to go off of.
Yeah, did you have a lot of footage?
Yeah, back in my high school class, we were basically just given free reign to make whatever we wanted to make.
Oh, cool.
So my friends and I would just go out and film pretty much anything we want, and I'd often just take completely random shots and put them together in a music video, and then I'd try and see if I could come up with a story out of it, sort of. Even if it was completely random things put together, it was just sort of fun to analyze
Oh, nice.
whatever went into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of similar to like my philosophy too. Which I guess I'm realizing now that we're talking about these in parallel. Like, that's how I cook and also how I shoot to get footage. Or take pictures. I like shoot a bunch of shots that I think are cool, and then I'm like, oh, let's make it like a sequence of these things and make them fit together on like logically in some way.
Yeah.
And that's also when I cook, I'm like, I just buy some different things that I'm like, I can do something with this, like this bok choy or whatever it is.
Right.
I'm gonna figure out something. I don't have like planned dishes that I'm
Right,
gonna
because you
make,
can
like-
improvise as you go, and then it comes up with something really interesting that you didn't know going in.
Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's disastrous.
Well.
It
And then
has
you
that.
learn.
Yeah, well, it is actually surprisingly, considering how freeform I have been rolling it with my cooking in the last, like, and I've improved a lot, of course, doing it for so long, because I started once I started studying in Norway, and then back then I had some okay understanding of some fundamental dishes, but it was very janky. So there's been even still, there's only been a few times where I was like, this wasn't very good.
Oh, okay.
There's only been like a couple of those maybe, or like 3 or 4 over the last 3.5, 4 years I've been
Well, that's
cooking.
impressive.
Yeah, I think it's just that people are more worried about disaster than I feel like people are worried when they start cooking. They're like, I'm gonna fuck it up,
That's true.
and then it doesn't really happen.
Yeah. If you know some small things to do, you can pretty much make most things work.
Yeah, it's like what can really ruin a dish beyond it's like burning it or like destroying it with something like adding 12 tablespoons of salt is gonna ruin anything.
That would definitely ruin something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's probably why every chef like under seasons their stuff
Oh,
constantly,
yeah.
unless they're actually good. Because even I definitely do that a lot. I under season stuff. I've gotten better at it recently, but it's if you oversalt something, it's fucked. But if you undersalt something, it's just a little bland.
Yeah.
So it's like it makes sense to make that trade off.
Interesting.
Sure.
Can there be is there enough of a middle ground to season it correctly?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I would say the middle ground is pretty big. You can get to like, yeah, this is good, but you could have done more, but it's still pretty good. Like it's still almost perfect. And that's a pretty wide area of almost perfect. And even if it's a little too salty, I mean, that's not a problem. It's like when you have twice as much as you should have had.
Right.
Then it becomes a problem. Of like,
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, have you done like how much cooking have you done?
I cooked a bit last summer. It was mostly I'd just get some ground turkey pretty much every week and then just either make turkey burgers or like pasta or something, or maybe tacos. It was just simple dishes and I didn't really vary the meat or anything.
Yeah.
Probably because I lived in this apartment where the oven would make anything catch on fire if you tried to use it, and the entire place was just so gross, and my roommates like never helped clean anything, so I never really wanted to cook very much in the apartment.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to being in a place where I feel like I can cook this year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was the issue, but I really like the idea of cooking and trying new things.
Uh-huh.
And I'm looking forward to that a lot.
Cool.
Yeah.
What kind of like what appeals to you about cooking specifically?
Well, there's just so much you can do. You can like open up new horizons for yourself. Just I mean, I'd probably look up recipes. I probably wouldn't be able to start free-forming right now. But pretty much anything I'd want to try, I could.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, maybe stir fries or, you were saying you were cooking Indian food. That sounds interesting too.
Oh yeah, it's awesome.
Because I have, like, one of my roommates is Indian and she's really good cook. So she could probably teach me some things as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And often, if you ask the right way, people are super happy to.
Oh,
to give
100%.
cooking tips.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know for sure if someone asks me for a tip while I'm cooking, I'm like, oh, so excited.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because there's so many different things you can try and different spices to make it more interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a housemate who was really into cooking too, for the last few years, and so we would like go back and forth sharing like cooking tips, and that was super productive. Just because one thing he told me that I use a lot, I used earlier today as well. There's a very easy sauce you can make for anything like anything gamey, anything with potatoes, any like meat and potatoes dish. You can have like a cream sauce where you just put cream and soy sauce and boil that up together, and it sounds absurd. Or to me, it sounded absurd at the time. I was like, this is not like soy sauce is supposed to go on sushi, and maybe you can have it in a wok, but no way you're like putting that in cream and it's gonna be good.
And it worked?
Oh, it's insanely good. It's just absurd how good it is. And you do that, you season it a little bit, and then it's fine. You can also put a lot of stuff in it. So you can put like scallops or scallions or onions or garlic, or I like to do like blue cheese, and as long as it's seasoned and the you want to like make sure it doesn't overcook or anything, then it's gonna be pretty good.
Interesting.
Yeah. And very surprising to me. But I've been putting a lot of different stuff into sauces like that, and it usually works. If it,
really?
Yeah, if it... Like, I had sriracha sauce in there, and that worked fine.
Oh, yeah. Sriracha goes well with a lot of things.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. One time my friend handed me an Oreo, but he had put sriracha in it, and I was very surprised.
Was it good?
I mean, in theory it was good, but when you're expecting just to have an Oreo and then there's sriracha in it, it's kind of more surprising than figuring out how good it is.
Yeah, that is definitely true.
But honestly, it sounds like it would be pretty good if you knew what you were doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Maybe. I just like sriracha on cheese. Honestly, that's a good snack.
Yeah.
Like, I'll often just take any sort of cheese, like brie, mozzarella. It just all goes well with sriracha.
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good sauce.
Yeah.
And I liked that with something like potatoes too.
Oh, that sounds good.
Yeah. Something I saw on, there's a YouTube channel called, Jesus Christ, called Brother Green Eats.
Okay.
And it's just two guys who I guess they're brothers, and they just have different cooking videos, and they're very like very instructional, very like just get out there and cook, and they have no like formal education in cooking or anything. They just really like it.
Okay.
Kind of the same as me, and they're very like big fans of experimentation too. So when I saw that, I'd been experimenting around for a few years already, so it was just like perfect for me.
Okay.
And they have like this crispy potato thing that I often have done, where you just chop and boil up the potato, and then you fry it in the pan to like crisp up the edges. And I like to throw some cheese, and you can definitely throw hot sauce or sriracha on that too.
Right.
Or different kind of seasonings. I done it with like combined it with some onion and some Indian spices, like some turmeric and stuff, which was cool.
Okay.
And that's the kind of stuff I like, just figuring out that okay, potato goes kind of well with onion, and that kind of, and like it also goes well with cheese, so maybe we can combine these, or what's going on here. They're just trying out stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. And do you remember that the life hack, like the secret hack that'll make any sauce better?
Onions, right?
Yeah, well, that is a big one. That is maybe I don't know if that's secret, but that's definitely the big hack.
Oh, okay.
That's not even a hack. That's just like, just use onions because they're awesome.
Yeah.
I think they're pretty healthy too, but I don't know.
Okay.
Seems reasonable that they are, but I don't actually know.
What was the hack?
The hack for sauces is just with soy sauce.
Okay.
And it goes in any sauce, like making a tomato sauce for a spaghetti or lasagna or something like that. Put some soy sauce in. Yeah. If you're making a cream sauce for like meat and potatoes, just put some soy sauce in.
Yeah, because olives go well with tomato sauce, because I can sort of see soy sauce doing that as well.
Yeah. And it has this One thing is that when you cook soy sauce, it adds this layer of fermentation and this umami flavor, which really brings out all the good things in the whole tasting experience. That's a big one, and also it's just often it adds a little bit of saltiness too, and often when people underseason their stuff, just that extra saltiness and that extra flavor can be pretty big. So I use it in everything pretty much, or in a lot of things. Like I'll use soy sauce in curry, which is not very traditional, but sometimes I will anyway, and it does help. And then, but that's only a little bit of soy sauce though. You don't want to overdo it. You don't want to put like a lot.
How much would you recommend?
I never measure, but I'll just do that like this and see how much. I'll just tip the bottle in and see how much it goes. But for like a wok or a stir fry, that's more, or you want the soy sauce to be the main flavor.
Yeah.
I do a lot. I do like maybe a few tablespoons.
Okay.
Whereas in this kind of thing, maybe 1 tablespoon or that kind of amount, depending on how big the sauce is. But you can just start out with a little and see how much it changes.
Interesting.
And then add more. Add to taste as well if you want to like really do it properly. I sometimes am too lazy to taste. I'm like, this probably needs some more salt. I'm
okay.
Gotta have a spoon and bother with tasting.
Okay. Soy sauce in sauces.
Yeah.
All right.
And they talk about that in Brother Brain also. That's why I brought it up.
Interesting. Have you heard of the YouTube channel You Suck at Cooking?
I think I've heard the name, but I don't think I've seen their videos.
Well, it's a comedy cooking channel.
Oh.
So it's a lot of it's just like recipes that I guess he makes up, but also he just puts in completely random things, and he uses a lot of editing skills to bring out flavor in his videos. Like he'll say like chop up a potato, and then he'll show him throwing the potato at the wall, and then right when it hits at the wall, it'll like cut to like just a bunch of potato clips falling down. So it looks like right when it hits the wall, it just turns into a completely cut up potato.
Oh, nice.
Stuff like that. And just he has so many videos, and they're all so interesting to watch because some of the things that he does are really fascinating.
Oh, so
and he writes a lot of music in them too.
So it's like an editing. It's more for the cooking. No, more for the editing than the cooking.
It's more for the editing and the humor than it is for the cooking. But you can still, if you genuinely go into the videos being like, I want to learn this recipe from it, you can still get it.
Oh, nice.
And he gives an overview as to how to do it. He doesn't exactly like say the exact measurements each time, so you can sort of get it and learn for your own.
Yeah.
But also, they're really funny to watch, so it makes it interesting.
That is a pretty good idea.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the time when you see a recipe, you just need to see like, get some approximate understanding of what's going on. Like seeing the recipe is enough. You don't need to actually watch a 10-minute video of someone chopping up onions if you know how to do that.
Yeah.
And like putting stuff in the pan and being like, okay, simmer it up, turn up the heat. It's
yeah.
like, yeah, I know how to do that. Thank you.
No, his are just super fast paced, so he just brings you to through the basics, and then you can just go from there.
Yeah.
And also have a laugh and at whatever he's doing in the video.
Because it's pretty cool that he's like adding that extra entertainment to kind of keep you around, even though you've already like, if you're just there for the cooking, you're still gonna want to stick around.
Exactly.
For just like the fun of the video.
Yeah.
That's pretty smart.
Yeah. And then there's another cooking channel called Binging with Bobbish.
Oh,
Have you
that
heard of
one.
that one?
Yeah, that one I subscribe to for sure.
Oh, okay.
That's super good.
Yeah, because doesn't he just make a bunch of different recipes from TV shows?
That was his main show, and so that's what he does for most of his stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But he also has like a kind of a small offshoot where he does like basics. It's called Basics with Bobbish, but it's still on the same channel.
Okay.
Where he does like actual, here are some basic things and what to do with them. Like here's like pork loin, basics with pork loin, and then he does like some different pork loin dishes. And His channel is super cool just because of the quality of his rig.
Yeah. Okay.
Like,
What does he have?
No, just like the camera is super good, the microphone is super good, the script is well recorded and everything, and it's super tight, and also like every surface is way more clean than it would actually be during cooking because he only like gets these very pristine, clean looking shots of everything.
That's true. He really does.
Yeah, so it makes everything seem like almost surgically precise. But it wouldn't actually be like that if he showed like the whole kitchen and what was going on. There would be like a lot of dirty stuff around, and
Right, of course.
and the time where he
cooking isn't that clean.
Yeah, so that's the appeal. It just like has all the niceness with none of the work associated with it. Too.
Okay.
Yeah. Plus, it's funny because he's doing stuff from shows.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He has a one where he does like. You remember from Game of Thrones where Arya throws all the Freys in a pie?
Oh, yeah.
From
He
the
makes
show?
a Frey pie.
Yeah, he does make the
Oh,
Frey pie,
man.
but he doesn't use human meat.
He doesn't? I
No.
feel like that kind of destroys the point.
It does kind of destroy the point, but also it would be illegal.
Yeah, maybe just a little.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Slightly illegal.
I don't think we're towards legalizing cannibalism quite yet. No. What does he use instead?
It would be super funny if in some state they were like, "Oh, we're legalizing cannabis," because they were legalizing cannabis, but they wrote it wrong. 'Cause the people involved in writing the law are so old. they're like,
Medicinal cannibalism.
yeah, what are we legalizing? What are these crazy young Californians want to do? Oh, cannibalism? Sure, cannibalism.
Yeah.
They said it was safe.
Yeah.
Just
Say it's good for your mental health, apparently.
Yeah, apparently.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well.
that would be. If that's gonna happen anywhere, it's gonna be in the U.S.
Probably. California first, maybe.
Maybe. Hard to say.
Only if it's medicinal.
Yeah, maybe if it's medicinal, maybe.
Oh yeah.
Some like crazy psychedelic guy is gonna be like, yeah, this needs to be legal.
That would be interesting if there were psychedelic properties associated with eating humans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like that would be mostly a placebo.
Yeah.
Like, whoa, I just ate this guy's finger. I'm gonna be so fucking up there from eating this guy's. Yeah, just chomping on a guy's hand.
I wouldn't be surprised if every drug is just a placebo. Like a really intense placebo.
That is an interesting theory. That's like a Matrix theory.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Like these drugs don't actually do anything for you. They just make you think they're doing something for you.
Yeah, there is something to that.
Yeah?
Definitely some of the benefits. Like if you use a drug for something, it's gonna help you for that unless it's actually, the compound actually hurts you. Just because of the placebo effect. Like
True.
if you take a pill for your stomach, it's gonna help your stomach even if it doesn't do anything. Just because you're like, the placebo effect gives you that extra boost.
Yeah, so much of your body is wired to like respond to you thinking that it's going well.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of impressive.
It's insane.
Yeah.
I'm like, how is this possible? It's like, and the explanation is like, yeah, well, it changes the way your brain sends signals. Well, why didn't it just do that on its own?
Why didn't it just do that when I wanted it to?
If we had a way to like just fix this, why didn't it get fixed? But I guess it's just because how would our brain know how to fix it unless we tell it to?
Yeah, true.
So I guess
It's just waiting for something to tell it to stop.
Yeah, it's like our brain, just like, it's kind of similar to any skill in a way. Like, if you're not told, like, I'm really into jiu-jitsu now. Like, I can show you if I still have it.
Yeah.
Behind all this swag on my computer. I was watching this, which is just jiu-jitsu. Is this also jujitsu? Yeah, this is almost jujitsu. This is just like Marcelo versus Keenan Cornelius commentary breakdown, where he's just breaking down what's going on in the fight. I can just put this on silent behind here. So this is pretty much what I've been watching.
Okay.
Because I've been so into jiu-jitsu lately.
Mm-hmm.
So I told you about the story where I started jiu-jitsu, right?
Yeah.
Yeah? So what did I tell you?
You told me that people had talked about it before and that you were always interested in trying it, but you didn't actually just really go for it until quite recently, where you're just like, I want to try this, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. I was just sitting in my room. So what actually happened, I realized what was the trigger to that brought me, like, the straw that broke the camel's back, so to say. And it was, I was listening to Bill Burr. Do you know who that is? He's a stand-up.
I've heard of him, yeah.
Yeah, a stand-up comedian, friend of Joe Rogan. Like, he's from Boston, so he has a very, like, he sounds a little angry sometimes when he talks. And he, like, yeah, well, he's pretty funny sometimes. But I was listening to his podcast in the morning, and he had, like, he gets his fans to write in, and someone wrote in and they were like, hey, my boyfriend's a huge pussy, like, he didn't defend me, like, there was a girl who like assaulted me and stole my phone, and my boyfriend didn't defend me. And I was like, well, that's never gonna be me. Now I gotta start train so I can at least be like, if it would come down to, like, defending someone, I could actually contribute at all. Because being I'm a pretty skinny person, and I've never been a big into, like, fighting at all.
Right.
And also I'm born, like, late in the year, so I've always been a little younger than, like, people in my class and stuff.
Oh, me too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you also born? When are you born?
I'm born in November.
Oh, nice, same.
Oh, nice. Wait, November what?
I'm 22.
Oh, okay. I'm 7.
Okay, so I'm still later than you in the year.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, never been super into fighting, and, like, it just annoyed me, the thought of, like, because for myself, I'm pretty much able to just step out of whatever situation. If someone wants to fight me, I'm like, okay, bro, whatever.
Yeah.
I'll just, you're right, sorry, just walk away. I don't
usually do the same.
Yeah, like, that's the best way of just handling stuff like that anyway, even if you know how to fight.
Yeah.
But sometimes you can't. There are occasions where you can't do anything,
right?
Where you're someone, you're one of your friends or your significant other or whatever gets into a situation, and then you kind of want to be there. So that's just what made me be like, okay, I've been wanting to check this out for a while, and that picture of, like, this guy writing in, or this girl writing in and being like, yeah, my boyfriend was such a pussy, I have to break up with him now. That just was, like, the catalyst for me finally being like, okay, whatever.
Because you don't want to be seen as a pussy by any girlfriend.
I mean, yeah. Well, yeah, but I was like, I am actually, like, right now, it's not about being seen as, I'm fine with being seen as a pussy if I am a pussy, but I don't want to be one. I want to be, like, able to actually have some idea, or just some like, a leg to stand on, some base level knowledge of what's going on. But it was just the last reminder in a few years maybe of having that in the back of my head of, like, that would be a cool thing to do. Maybe I'll do it one day, and I'd written it down somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that was the same with me for getting into cello.
Yeah.
Because I had wanted to play cello for 8 years, like, pretty much since I was in 5th grade. And then just last year, I was slowly thinking of getting it because one of my friends wanted to get it with me. She was like, hey, let's share custody of a cello and just learn together. And I was like, sure. But then there were issues, we could never go out and get one. But then one day I was at a party And I met this girl, and she was like, "Hey, do you play any musical instruments?" I said I played piano, and then I asked about her, and she said that she plays cello. And I was like, "That's so cool! I've always wanted to play the cello."
Yeah.
And then after that, I just was like, you know what? I'm just gonna go for it. I'm gonna go do the cello, and it's just after all these years of wanting to do it, I finally have just someone that I met someone that plays cello, and it just felt like I needed to go out and do it.
Yeah.
And it's just nice to have that catalyst.
Well, good for you.
And good for you.
It is. It's been very good.
Yeah.
Like, I was surprised at how much I liked it.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you go to YouTube and you search, like, when I was, like, looking up jiu-jitsu starting information, you get these videos that are, like, what to do when you're starting out and what to expect and stuff. They pop up in your feed and you're like, okay, I'll watch some of these just to, like, get the lay of the land. And one of the people in the videos, he was like, okay, so it's gonna be rough the first few months. You're gonna like everyone's gonna just beat you up, and it's gonna be really hard, and you're gonna be frustrated, and it's gonna suck. But then once you get through that and you start understanding, then it's gonna become fun. And I was like, okay, it's gonna be a lot of work, but that's fine in the beginning. I'll push through that. And then it has just been really fun.
Yeah.
It's just been awesome because everyone's so like the environment, the social environment is so incredibly constructive. Everyone is super interested in learning from you and teaching to you, and having that dynamic all the time. And there's never any like if they're putting pressure on you, it's for your benefit, and if they're giving you advice, it's for your benefit, and there's no competition or ego or anything in the gym I've been in.
Right.
Which I've been in a really, really, really good gym, like probably one of the best in the country. It has Jeff Glover, who's a third-degree black belt and has won multiple world championships, and like is a fucking. I think he's been a black belt for 13 years.
Oh wow.
So like, obviously at that point, you know what the fuck's going on around the block. So I can't imagine all schools are like that, but definitely the one I've been in has been just incredibly constructive and welcoming, and everyone's been super nice, and also allowing you to. They're giving you resistance, and they're showing you that what they can do, and like giving you submitting you and stuff. But they're also allowing you to practice stuff and to test some out. And to get submitted sometimes.
Yeah.
If like they think I do a good guard pass, they'll give me the guard pass even though they could have defended it.
Right.
And stuff.
Well, that's so cool.
Yeah.
I actually got a similar club for playing cello.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, because
the parallels continue.
Yeah, right. Because also I was feeling it when you were talking about how it's difficult to get into. Because same with cello, it's just such a different experience from any other instrument, because there's so many different, like the pressure you put on the bow and actually being able to hold the bow, as well as being able to play the different parts with your fingers on a fretless board. There's just so many complicated things you have to keep track of all at once.
Yeah.
But then I found this club at our school called Giving Bach. A couple of my friends started it. It's like a string instrument club.
Genius name, by the way.
Right? So I think it's a national organization where a bunch of people get together playing strings, and they go to different charity events and stuff.
Oh, awesome.
It's really cool. We played at a retirement home and a homeless shelter before. But yeah, everyone in the club is just so nice and so supportive of me, even though they've all been playing for like 10 years, and I just started pretty much. The first time I went to the club was 6 days into when I first got the cello.
Oh.
So I've been with them from the beginning, and they've just been super supportive, and it's just so nice to have people to bring you up and help you out and challenge you, because like I'm playing the same music as everyone else and trying really hard, and they're all giving me hints and stuff, and it's nice when you have that backing.
Yeah.
And like, as opposed to people who are competing, it's harder to get that.
Yeah.
But if you're just cooperating and supporting each other, it really helps.
Yeah. Having that cooperative attitude is I think what it's all about.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to have more of just in life in general. And obviously right now it's like being a student, you can't make choices for everything in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can't live wherever you would want to, and you kind of have to deal with the classmate and project mates and housemates and
Right.
roommates and stuff. But in a world where you can decide whoever you want to associate with and which people you want to have around you,
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to have just people who would give me that cooperation in general, just in everything.
Right.
Because the way it's the same, it's the same in cello as in jiu-jitsu, as in anything else like cooking.
Any hobby you
Or-
ever want to do.
Yeah, any hobby, anything just in life too, just staying active and working on studies and doing things together. And if you have just like, and also very much in conversation as well, I think. There's a big difference between someone who wants to like, who takes issue with something you're saying and then tries to like get you
to argue
constantly.
with you. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely met people like that.
And who are just like, you say something that's a little vague, and then they're like, okay, that sounds like you have this position, and you're like, no, that's not what I mean. But they're like, you said this, now I'm gonna prove that that's your actual position. So I'm just gonna like try to gotcha.
Yeah,
you
people who
all the
assume
time.
things about what you think, or people who try to one up you
Yeah.
by thinking something different. I don't know, it's difficult. I
Yeah.
find surrounding myself with open people who are open to more thoughts and willing to bring each other up works the best. I don't know, it's just nice to have people who can cooperate in conversation as well.
That is true. It's been like, so have you, what kind of, do you have a method of like figuring out what kind of people are beneficial to like create that kind of social sphere?
It's not really a method. I've definitely met people who I find aren't as supportive and who bring me down, and at some point it's just looking at friendships that you have and wondering, is this person bringing me up or is this person bringing me down? Because that's such a big factor in friendships or in relationships or in life in general. Because I've definitely had friendships where either the friends are using me or just being fake and not completely supporting me, and that's been really hard in my life, and it's just difficult to realize that, and it's a difficult question as to how to distance yourself from these people. But at the end of the day, you're in charge of your own life, and you shouldn't surround yourself with people that bring you down, because there are other people that will bring you up and who you can bring up as well, and that's important to find.
Yeah. Especially the last part about bringing like they're gonna bring you up and maybe you can bring them up as well. Oftentimes, or in some cases, you'll just find someone who's just malevolent, right? You'll find someone who just is angry, and they'll take it out on people and just be a bad person. But some other times you'll find people who they're definitely being negative towards you, and the whole dynamic is not working, but they could have a very positive relation with someone else, and you maybe could have too. So It's not about necessarily anyone being at fault. It's more about just being incompatible.
Yeah.
And that's important.
Some people
to
don't
understand
match
too.
as well as others, and
Yeah.
that's okay. And it's all about finding the people that you feel
Close this
supported
window.
by.
Keep talking. I'm gonna close this window. 'Cause I don't know if they're cutting grass or what's going on, but yeah, there's definitely enough draft in here.
Yeah, because I've definitely found people that I personally haven't connected with, and I think that's totally okay, because they'll find people who will connect with them, and I'll find others who connect with me. And that's what we're all there for. We look for people who have similar experiences with us, but also people who we like to be around and who have great conversations with.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Because I've found so many people that I can just have conversations with for hours.
Yeah.
I met this one girl who I'd say was more of on the scale of bringing people down and bringing herself down as a result. And one of the things she said to me was that we were talking, we had genuinely long conversations because I tend to like doing that with people. And she said to
I
me,
haven't noticed.
she said to me, you're the only person I've met at this school who I have anything in common with. And it's just difficult to see that when I feel like if you
Hey guys.
Dude, it's madness out here.
Yes.
Yeah, I heard.
Couldn't get into
Yeah.
the parking
Right
garage.
here.
Oh wow.
hey,
Hey, how's it going?
good,
All
how
the
are
cops, it's fine.
Yeah.
Oh, is it that bad?
Yeah, no, because they roped it off so like only people can
Oh,
It's
like
acting
walk
as a
down and
sidewalk.
drive out.
dude, that's
So the
crazy.
entire lane going
Yeah.
into the parking garage is just a sidewalk. Because they roped it that way.
Oh, man.
So only people are coming out and nobody's coming in. And it's just wrapping around the entire campus back there.
Okay.
Yeah. So I called the UCSB cop line.
Oh.
And she was like, what do you want me to do? What is your question? And then she actually looked up what's happening after I explained to her over and over again. She's like, oh yeah, we have someone coming immediately. I'm like, that's what I've been saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my god, those people are so unhelpful sometimes.
Yeah, she was a bitch. Like a bitch and a half. I was like, I'm just
Trying
it's also
to help.
blocking, and it's
Yeah.
blocking the fire department thing. So
Yeah, it's
it's a problem potentially.
oh god.
yeah.
Whatever, trying to help. Anyways.
What the fuck were we saying?
Yeah, so I met this girl,
Oh yeah.
and she liked to complain about how everyone at the school was just out to bring her down and she didn't have
Yeah.
anything in common with anybody. And I find when you have that attitude, it's of course difficult to find that you have anything in common with anybody because you think that everyone is negative and everyone's bringing you down. But if you look for good qualities in everyone that you meet,
Yeah.
you'll more easily be able to find people that bring you up. But
Yeah.
I just find that the people that I can't spend as much time with are the people that think everyone's out to get them, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And there is a desire there to fix them or to help them and to be like, come on, no, it's not that bad.
Yeah.
We can figure this out. Don't be like, you're a cool person and it's just not gonna happen sometimes.
No, because sometimes people will blame everyone else for their negativity and say, oh, everyone else in this world is awful and I'm the only good person out there.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, they're just pushing other people apart, and that's why they're being pushed apart by other people.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so
Back to the swag.
be nice to everybody, and then you'll find good qualities in people.
That is an interesting one. So I agree with that to a large extent.
Mhm.
And there is I don't know how big this was internationally, but in Norway, in the literature or the literary history of Norway, we had something in the early 2000s that was called naivism, and we have a very famous author called Erland Loe, who wrote one of my favorite books. It's a book named Doppler about a guy who lives in a tent with a moose. He kidnaps or he kills its mother for meat, and then there's just a moose calf, and then the moose calf just starts living with him. So it's about him. Yeah, well, it's an amazing book. It has been translated to English,
Okay.
but I don't think it works as well in English. He has a very particular style. Sadly, I wish it could be translated well. But
Yeah.
anyway, the point of his books, or some of his books, is to kind of I don't know if this is necessarily the point is the right word, but it takes away a lot of the minutia and focuses on the essentials.
Okay.
And it's a lot about, like, the story is about this person who gets disenfranchised somehow and making small steps and towards the things that are significant and finding, like, significant things again.
Yeah.
So, like, in his like big debut or breakthrough novel that's called Naive Super, he has a character who gets, like, overwhelmed by existential anxiety and starts, like, doubting the meaning of everything and stuff, and then he just starts having these positive interactions with people around him and, like, thinks about, meditates on the different questions, and, like, he gets this meditation tool. It's like the children's story where in Norwegian it's called, like, a beating board. Do you have that in the US as well?
No, what is that?
It's a board of nails, and then you get a small tiny hammer, and then you hammer all the nails in, and then you flip it over, and then it can beat them down again.
Yeah, I've seen something like that. I don't know what it's called.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty popular toy for children in Norway. And he gets one of those and just uses it as a meditation tool.
Right.
And he gets a ball. Is that mine? No,
I don't think so. Okay.
it's not mine. So yeah, that's pretty. The focus on being just nice and kind to people, I think, is pretty essential in that as well.
Okay, cool.
But what I don't like about the word nice is that there has, like, this implication of being superficial about it or not genuine.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like, I feel like sometimes being nice is more being overly kind or being disingenuously kind. Whereas being generous and kind are good if they're used, like,
If they're not superficial.
yeah, or not disingenuous.
That's true. I find that if I bring a more positive outlook on life, it's easier to be genuinely kind to people. Because I find that a lot of people that I meet often talk about a negative interaction they have with someone, and then they say, "Oh, I hate people." But what I've been trying to do more in my life is see a positive interaction with people that I have, and then say that I love people.
Yeah.
And then whenever I have a negative interaction with someone, I'm just like, "Oh, maybe that person's having a bad day or something."
Yeah.
And, like, to an extent that actually works, because one time I was at a party, and I think it was a frat party, and I just really needed to use the bathroom, and I walk up to, there was, like, a door that was open, and one of the frat guys was standing there, and I was like, "Hey, can I use your bathroom?" And then he just said no and slammed the door in my face. And my gut instinct was just to laugh. I legitimately just laughed. I thought it was funny because this guy slammed the door in my face, just because I reached this point where I genuinely liked people so much that when I saw someone just try to actively be mean to me, I kind of found it funny.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive.
Thanks.
What you're talking about, I think this is it's a topic I've been listening to a lot very recently, like this week. I've been listening to a lot of people talk about the practice of happiness, which is kind of the same as what you're talking about. So just like, there was a guy on Joe Rogan recently, it's episode 1309. I think his name is Naval something. I'm going to look that up while we're talking. So this is someone else. This is Hamilton Morris, but that's a very good podcast as well. Talks about drugs and LSD and stuff. Joe Rogan, Naval Ravikant. This guy. This is they talk about the practice of happiness a lot in this one, and it's basically one of the things that's central is what you just talked about of, like, generalizing the positive and focusing on that, and when someone does something negative, approaching them with understanding and kind of like not letting it get to you.
Yeah, exactly. Because
Unless
at the
you-
end of the day, that's more their problem than it is your problem.
Yeah.
Because if you bring other people up, they can be brought up, but
Yeah.
you shouldn't let other people bring you down, because that's not productive.
Yeah, exactly. Because people like to think, this is something Joe talks about a lot, but people like to think that they're not affected by what other people think at all, and that they have this, like, yeah, whatever, I don't care. I don't care what they say, and I'm my own person, whatever. But the truth is that everyone cares what other people think to some extent. So it's important to understand that and be like, okay, this is what happened. What can I actually affect about this?
Right.
Like, if someone slams the door in your face, are you actually achieving something by becoming angry?
Yeah, what's the point of getting mad when you could just walk away, try and find a bathroom somewhere else?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, I find it much more productive just to try and be as happy as you can, and if other people are less than that, then I find that sad,
Yeah.
and then I walk away.
So, my perception is that you have a pretty agreeable personality. Would you agree with that?
No, of course not. Well, I just try to be nice to everybody that I meet. I feel like I can learn something from anyone, and I'll meet people in completely random situations that I'm not expecting. Like, we met on a camping trip,
Yeah.
and we hit it off, and now we're making a podcast together.
Yeah.
So I feel like you never know where some event might take you. Like, I just signed up for camping because I thought it was fun, and now we've been hanging out for quite a few times, and I've been having fun each time, and I'm glad that I went on that trip. And I feel like I do things like that a lot, where I'll just meet someone in a random place, and then I'll meet them again. And we live in such a small town that I feel like I can just meet people so often that I know everyone.
Like, we even met today.
Yeah, exactly.
Accidentally.
Yeah.
Even though we were planning to meet
We
later.
were planning to meet, and then we just met when we were both going to dinner.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's cool when that happens, because you're just like, huh. Or sometimes I'll remember someone that I haven't seen for a while, and then right after I think about them, I'll see them.
Oh.
And that's always
the
a weird
classic.
occurrence. That happens to me so much.
Yeah. That makes you wonder. That's the kind of
Yeah.
thing that... Because that is such a common experience to have.
Yeah.
And it could just be that human brains love finding patterns and coincidences like that. So whenever it happens, it's like, aha! But it's actually just happening statistically normally.
Right.
But also there could be like... I've heard some people talk about like, ooh, when you think about someone and then they call you, it's like, ooh, how do you know?
But
Do you,
that-
like, is there some subconscious stimuli that's going on?
It's possible, because that's happened to me so many times
Yeah.
in my recent life that
That's
it's
such an
almost
anecdote you hear.
feels unprobable. But, like, so does all of life, honestly. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, there's just something so strange about life existing at all that it kind of almost makes sense that really unpredictable things happen, or really improbable things happen.
Yeah.
Can't exactly describe it.
Yeah, well, because of course improbable things are going to happen all the time. It's
right.
just that they won't be... That particular thing won't be happening most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, people win the lottery every day.
Yeah.
It's just, or whatever, they have it every week. Probably across the world they win it every day.
That's true.
It's just that when you play a lottery, your chances are pretty slim.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But, like, the idea of just, like, say you go on a random trip across the country to New York or something, and then you
Which
meet...
I'm going on.
Oh, you are?
Yeah.
Nice. Say you met one of your friends there that you didn't know was going on a trip to New York, and you just both happened to be going to the same restaurant at the same time.
Yeah, are you
It's-
going to New York? That would be really funny.
Maybe I'll see you in a restaurant there.
Are you actually?
No,
No,
but
that would be funny.
that would be cool. Maybe I'll make a trip just to surprise you.
Yeah,
It's those kind of things that make you really think.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Because it could just be that improbable things are bound to happen, but maybe there is some more going on that we don't know about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not a big into like destiny stuff. For me personally, that has never, or maybe when I was a kid, but never later has that idea been very compelling. But the idea that there is some unconscious stimulus that is tuned more into like when we might feel the need to talk to someone and or just a predictor system that's like, oh, they're probably going to reach me now and now, so I should be preparing such and such thoughts for this. Something like that, a system like that.
Interesting.
I could see existing somehow, of just like, because our brains are obviously really good at like learning patterns and then preparing so that we're ready for something. So maybe it can learn like, okay, I see this person so often, and last time we talked about this, so they're probably going to be interested in calling me back a few months later. Or sometimes like you've been thinking a lot about someone and then they've been thinking a lot about you, and then you're like, one of you is going to call eventually, so it makes sense that that feeling is going to happen.
Yeah, but other times I've had it where, like, say, there was this girl who was in my dorm last year, but I hadn't seen her all of this year. And then about halfway through the year, I think one day I was thinking about the fact that I hadn't seen her in a while. And then the next day I was biking to class and I was thinking about the fact that I was thinking about that I hadn't seen her for a while. And then right at that moment she biked by.
Oh, wow.
And it's like that. It's like we weren't even close enough to have like an unconscious stimulus that would happen, and then it's such a strange thing that we'd bike by each other at the exact same moment.
Yeah.
That
sounds like just a coincidence.
But then it happened a second time with
my God.
her again, like maybe a month later.
That is pretty funny though.
Where like both times I was thinking about the fact that I hadn't thought about her in a while.
Yeah.
And then she biked by me.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird.
It's really weird when that happens.
Yeah.
But it's like, how often do you think about someone and they don't show up? Probably a lot, right?
But never like I don't know. I feel like most times when I think about a person that I haven't seen in a while, they end up showing up somehow.
They do? But you remember those times.
That's true.
That's what I'm trying to say.
That's true.
I'm sure there are a lot of times. Because I think about people that I haven't seen for a while. Sometimes I do it pretty often, and it's not like they just always show up.
That's true.
But sometimes they definitely do, and then it's like, wow, what a coincidence. I'm not sure if there would be anything to like the brain being able to predict that better, or if it's just like us being very interested in coincidences like that.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't know. On some level, I feel like there could definitely be some sort of fate that happens. Just in some sort, like even in a scientific, mathematical sort of way, there could be something that just like based on patterns that brings us together.
Yeah.
In some really difficult to study scientific way. I don't know how to describe it.
Yeah.
Or maybe there is something more going on. It's hard to say.
It is. Well, I think obviously we're just like wildly speculating.
Yeah.
For the fun of it. But it's good that people can have conversations like this.
Yeah.
Or I generally, I really appreciate that with someone, just because a lot of people would just not be open-minded enough to even entertain that idea.
Yeah.
And I feel like if you can't entertain ridiculous ideas, you're missing out on a lot of stuff. Because there's a lot of things that people think is ridiculous that isn't actually that ridiculous once you look more into it. And then it's like, and I don't just mean like weird stuff. I mean very scientific stuff. Like
Yeah.
the Earth is round was really at the time when that was like big news.
Hmm.
That was obviously crazy.
Right.
If you're not open minded to ideas like that, then
Yeah.
there's no chance of you growing or progressing.
That's true.
Yeah.
I mean, I personally believe in fate, but
Uh-huh.
also early in my life, I really, really was against the idea of believing in fate because I was super scientific minded.
Uh-huh.
So I definitely understand both sides as to how you can be closed minded, but also since I've become open minded since then. But there was this one time that one of my friends who's very scientifically minded and super closed minded about the sort of fate stuff.
Yeah.
I was like, hey, let's go to Campus Point, which is the place in our school where there's like the ocean all around us. It's a really
Yeah.
pretty place to go at night.
It's awesome.
Yeah. So I just took her there and did a guided meditation.
Uh-huh.
And then afterwards, she was starting to seem super like at peace and prophetic in a sort of way. And it was just so strange because it seemed like all of her super scientific things just sort of melted away. And she was like, okay, I really want to go to bed now, but when we get back to my house, there's going to be something stopping me from going to bed right away. And I thought that was really weird when she said it. I was like, okay, sure, see what happens. And then the instant we got back to her house, she got a call from a couple of our friends saying that that they were coming over to her house and that they wanted to hang out with us. And I was like, okay, that's weird considering the fact that she had just said that something was going to stop her from going to sleep when she got back to her house.
Yeah.
But not only that, earlier that day, she had said that she had missed hanging out with those friends and she hadn't seen them for a while.
Yeah.
So it was just all of those things sort of built up together that makes it kind of weird. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like maybe it's really improbable, but also just seeing it happen so in a row like that kind of makes you question things.
Yeah, it introduces that seed of open-mindedness. That
Yeah.
just like that opening of doubt.
Exactly.
It's like, okay, this is something that I wouldn't expect to happen with my current model. So is there a chance that my current model is wrong, or is there something I haven't accounted for in my model? Is there some sort of subliminal thing that's going on in my psyche that's driving my behavior and driving the people around me's behavior? Is there some metaphysical thing going on, like some sort of fate? I think fate is it's not as simple and elegant as I would want, because I feel like if fate was real, it would be more spectacular.
What do you mean?
Like, I feel like that's a very spectacular explanation for things that are not that significant. Like making a cool prediction and stuff is really cool, but it doesn't require something like a theory as grandiose as fate, like everything is planned necessarily. I think there could be explanations that don't posit as much of a change from our current models of like how things work.
Like what? What would be a model that would suggest that something like that could happen?
I just think let's say our relation, I don't know if this is actually how it works, but I'm just speculating. Let's say that our relation has a certain level of, or a certain amount of brain cells and some patterns associated with it, where we have like our memories of our conversations and kind of like our flow of behavior when we're hanging out.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that's unique to our interaction. And then we don't hang out for a while. And then those systems are like, okay, do we want to keep these or not? So then it gets brought to our attention. And then that happens approximately at the same time, assuming we're on the same page when we're having these conversations. So then, I'm just going to get back to the swag.
Yeah.
So then, as that as that kind of deprivation happens, and we're like, I wonder what the other person's doing. Like, what's going on? And then we have those same thoughts together, and just having that thought kind of drives our behavior so that we're more attentive to finding each other. We're seeing more like, oh, was that Dustin? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Or we're more like likely to be in the same orbit, in the same locations, like more likely to call each other, stuff like that. I think that is a simpler explanation, although it's just as far as I know. I mean, I've never heard of such a system. It might not even exist. So.
But in a way, that could sort of encompass what Fade is trying to get at.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I feel like you can be scientific about things and still believe in something more going on than what's currently talked about in general science.
Yes.
Because the main thing about being a scientist is being open-minded.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, scientific principles are based off of ones that come before them, but you should always be open to changing hypotheses if they don't work.
Yes.
Because that's what the scientific method is.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's how a lot of like conspiracy theories tend to spiral out of control, like the flat earth ones.
Yeah.
Because they're not exactly trying to disprove their own hypothesis. They're trying to disprove the one that's generally accepted and prove their own hypothesis.
Yeah. This is related. So did you end up, how much of the podcast with Hancock did you get into?
I got about halfway through. I was trying to
nice.
finish it. I didn't get around to finishing it. I remember he was talking about the geometrical, like the dugout structures.
Yeah.
Like where they squared the circle.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool.
The one that I found really interesting was the fact that the guy went through the Amazon and found like incredibly immense civilizations, but then within 100 years they were gone because of the like smallpox may have killed off most of the civilizations, and then the forest just overgrew. And that's an incredible concept to me, thinking that there could have been incredibly advanced Native American civilizations in the Amazon that before the Europeans came that we just will never know about because the forest has just grown over them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is pretty insane. And the fact that so much of this is being brought up or brought to light now, and he was talking about like the pure indoctrination that the field of archaeology has had for so long, and like the dogma that's been going on where people are so wrapped up in whatever the consensus of the field says.
Yeah. And that's not a new thing that's happened. I feel like people will just accept whatever's widely accepted in science, and I'm glad that people are starting to question it, because throughout history, people haven't, like, the science has been repressed. Like, the guy who discovered the square root of 2 was thrown overboard of a ship because they didn't want rational numbers, and then Copernicus couldn't publish his studies for years, and then Galileo was, like, very punished by the church because he tried to say that the earth went around the sun.
Yeah.
And it's like all these, throughout history, people have been repressed by the government or whatever governing body against science. And I feel like that's still happening today. We should still question how structures like the pyramid, it's such an anomaly how perfect the structure is. Yeah. Even just from reading the Wikipedia article, you can be like, there's something more going on than just people cutting with copper saws. Yeah. The fact that there was a study last year that showed that the Great Pyramid of Giza can focus electromagnetic energy, and people are just brushing it off as a coincidence. I feel like you should start to question maybe some of the stuff that we know is wrong, just like Galileo said, hey, maybe some of the stuff that we know is wrong.
Yeah, and I think that's people's problem is they don't want to, they have a hard time being open-minded to paradigm shifts and to new ideas like
Right.
that are going to take away from what they already have and be like, yeah, what you thought was wrong. They're going to be like, no, what I think is right, and I've held on to these beliefs for so long. I'm so invested in these ideas that I can't change now.
And that's the same with people who believe that the earth is flat, because they're just so into that idea that they're not open to the actual science behind the earth actually being round.
Yeah.
I feel like I can get behind anything that has science behind it and seems justifiable through experimental methods.
Yes. And then you can get behind it, and then you can, as long as you also try to falsify it, then you can see, like, look at the other side and be like, huh.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're looking into that's the problem with all these flat earthers, and it's the same with everyone. The problems arise when someone, instead of admitting that they don't know, or instead of looking objectively at something, they posit. They take an hypothesis and they posit it.
Yeah,
Like
they just say their hypothesis is correct.
Yeah, and then they're just looking to prove it right, and everything that proves it right, they're like, yeah, look at this.
Yeah.
And everything that proves it wrong, they're like, no, don't look at that.
Yeah.
Or that doesn't make any sense because, and then they try to disprove that, and it's like, that's such a counterproductive way of doing things.
Yeah.
And that's the same with the people, like you were talking about that girl in your school who was just like, everyone's out to get me. She just had that hypothesis, and then
she has that hypothesis, and she doesn't think, hey, what if maybe I can do some positive changes? Maybe that will work.
Exactly. Or maybe just because this person was a little short with me this morning, that doesn't mean they necessarily hate me. That just means they were a little short.
Right.
Could be a million explanations for
I
that.
shouldn't take that out on them just because maybe they were a little unhappy today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is vital to understand. And that's... I have had this issue before. Of, I have a tendency to, when these people are around me, I tend to feed into their behavior too much, which I'm trying to stop doing.
Definitely.
So when they're whining about a problem, I have a tendency to be like, oh, it's not that bad. Like, always the glass half full kind of person, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, yeah, you have this assignment, but I'm sure if you, like, just focus on this, it's going to be fine. Or, like, some people just want to get out some bad stuff out of their system, so they, like, complain about stuff. And even, I don't like that pattern. I don't enjoy it when people do that, but I think it's acceptable, and I do it sometimes too.
Yeah.
Especially when I play games.
Right.
When I play League of Legends, I fucking go off on some complaining sometimes.
Yeah.
And I have a tendency to be way too positive towards that. I think it's better to either, like, ignore it or to be like, well, okay. Or, like...
Yeah.
Or agree with them once and then be like, okay, let's move on. One of
my best friends, he has this phrase that he says every time someone complains about, like, something completely random to him, he just says, I don't know what to tell you. And it's just like, because it'll often be someone that's complaining about some, or like, I found that often people may ask me for advice on something, and then I'll give them advice on that thing, and then they'll just be like, no, I don't think I'm going to do that.
Oh,
and it's just like, it's just a perfect, well, I don't know what to tell you then, because if you're not willing to make a positive change in this thing that you clearly want to make a positive change in, then I really don't know what to tell you on that front.
Yeah. I think that's also if someone just complains about something random. Like, one thing is if it's funny, that is completely okay.
Yeah.
Everything is okay when it's funny.
Yeah.
Like, if you're coming
Because if you're having a laugh and you're complaining about something, that's okay.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
If you're like, dude, I met this girl today, she was a total bitch. She was like, that's funny sometimes. Just to be like, wow, what a silly person.
Yeah.
What a crazy experience. That's one thing, but I mean, like, if someone's like, I have this thing, and it's fucking sucks, and I gotta do stuff, and yeah, it's terrible. which people do all the time.
Yeah.
Just have this pattern of like complaining about stuff, and just giving them the I don't know what to tell you. It's so honest. It's like,
Yeah.
well, I'm not going to encourage you,
Right.
and I don't have anything constructive to add to this.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just be like, once you're done talking, then
Yeah.
I can contribute again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I feel that.
Yeah. So I like that.
Yeah.
I like that phrase.
It's a nice phrase, and I've been using it more and more as I notice more people complaining about things that at the end of the day I'm not gonna go out of my way to do something,
Yeah.
anything specific.
Yeah. It's in one of the workshops I've been to for like there was like a courses in social dynamics, which I found really interesting in like conversation and stuff. Also, I had this thought yesterday, and it was I sometimes have like big thoughts that I want to write down, and usually they're completely useless, but I still want to keep onto them because they're good ideas.
Of course.
And I've been thinking for like, this is a thought I've had brewing for like a solid 9 years probably.
Okay.
And I finally was like, I need to write this down. And it's that rhetoric used to be a subject in school that was taught
Okay.
all the time, and I don't understand why it's gone. And that's always bothered me. And now I'm like, I wrote down on my Trello like, get rhetoric back into school.
Okay.
Why is having training to have a conversation and training to give speeches not considered an important enough skill
True.
to be included in a primary school curriculum? It's so much more important than 90% of what you're learning in primary school.
Yeah. Huh. That's interesting.
Because people are such bad conversationalists. And I'm
Yeah.
sure because you're a really good conversationalist.
Thank you.
So I'm sure you notice this.
Mm-hmm.
And it must annoy you to some extent. Even though you're really a positive person.
I mean, even at times, I find it difficult to start a conversation and keep a conversation going with someone that I don't know too well. Honestly, most of the people that I'm able to carry good conversations with are people that tend to talk more.
Uh-huh.
Like, and then I can just like smile and like say yeah to what they're saying because it kind of works that way. And I've never been super good at sharing, or like I don't like sharing with people that I'm not super close with.
Mm-hmm.
Especially because a lot of times in conversations I'll just say completely random things just to get a laugh or something, and that doesn't always work with people that I don't know so well because I sort of have to gauge if that'll work or not.
I do that too.
Yeah.
It's really tricky sometimes.
Yeah.
I used to just blame the people when I didn't get it to work, but now I've started to take responsibility. And
Yeah.
Okay, I shouldn't have gone for that joke.
Yeah.
They didn't understand what I was trying
Right.
to do.
And but then you can also learn. You can also learn, oh, maybe this won't work with some people, maybe it'll work with others.
Yeah.
But yeah, what was I saying?
You were saying like you're more of a listening person.
Yeah, I'm definitely more of a listening person,
Yeah.
and then eventually I'll share. But sometimes I feel bad about sometimes I just feel weird about talking for too long because I feel like I'm hogging the space or something. I don't know. It's it's kind of weird. Because I guess that's one of my self-consciousness things. I've just never been super able to just talk for prolonged periods of time, without feeling like I'm over talking. I don't know.
Do you feel like you're over talking right now?
I don't know. We're on a podcast, might as well.
Yeah. Then you can
talk.
do whatever you want.
Yeah.
No, but I think it's interesting because my observation is that you're pretty agreeable.
Thank you.
I think that it's not necessarily a compliment, but I'm
Okay.
appreciating that you're taking it as a compliment. I mean, just because being agreeable has a lot of benefits and a lot of drawbacks. It's like wherever you fit on the scale is kind of good as long as you play into that.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes sense that you're like, you're interested in listening, and you probably automatically had that self-consciousness about talking for too long, right? You didn't have to learn that by talking for too long all the time, and then people telling you, dude, you talk too much, and then being like, okay, I should feel self-conscious about that.
Right.
Or did you have that experience?
Well, funny story. So my mom's a speech pathologist.
Uh-huh.
She's so good at it, but she teaches.
speech-
She's a speech pathologist. She
Uh-huh.
teaches
Oh, yeah.
kids like speech patterns and also social skills. She wrote a book
Uh-huh.
about social skills.
Dude.
Really good book.
That's so... There you go. Coincidence again, because I was talking about rhetoric and like teaching
Yeah.
children like how to have conversations.
Yeah.
And then your mother works as
Yeah.
someone who does that.
And as my mother has worked as someone that does that, of course she very heavily taught me how to do that as a kid. Also, I was an only child, so she went like out of her way to make sure that I wasn't selfish, because I sort of started off being selfish. She's like, no, you got to give other people their turn.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's where it comes in. Like I always want to give other people their turn in conversations.
Yeah.
That sometimes I don't feel as if I can take my turn, but also I feel that I can do that with people that I'm close with.
Yeah.
So it works out.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I'm not selfish. I'm glad she taught me that.
So your mom sounds pretty cool, because she was really into meditation as well, right?
Yeah, she was. She's the one that sort of got me on that and the whole
Yeah.
spirituality path. Yeah,
Yeah, you
because
talked about that.
she's such an open person. She's always open to new experiences and trying new things. So that's probably where I get a lot of my openness from. My dad was raised in a Catholic family, so he's been sort of more closed throughout his life, and he's like, my mom and him are interesting together, because my mom's really gotten him to try more things, because before they met he had never tried like Mexican food or Chinese food or sushi, but she was like, no, you got to do all these things, and then he did, and he ended up liking them, and he's become a really open person too, and it's really cool seeing that, because even over the course of my life he's really changed a lot, and I just love being around open people who I can talk with, and I just really enjoy talking to my parents about most topics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is very important. And I'm sure, well, you just said it, you really appreciate having like had the experience to learn that so early.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a shame that that's not more focused on in the Western society.
Yeah.
Having quality conversations.
Because my parents definitely made it happen, so every night we'd have dinner together, and my mom would ask me how my day went, and I'd go through my day.
Yeah.
And then she'd be like, okay, now ask me how my day went, and then I'd do that every time, and then we'd talk together, and it worked. So we all learned what is going on in each other's lives, and we got to do that. And I think I'm very lucky for having that experience, because I know a lot of people don't get that.
Yeah, and then they just piss everyone off for 20 years, like I do. And still do. Dude, I have such trouble shutting the fuck up.
Really?
Oh, yeah. You've probably noticed to some extent that I can... Like, I need to, like, rein myself in sometimes in conversation, so I don't just, like...
Oh, well, you're fun to listen to, because you go all over the place, and I like that in a person.
Yeah, because you're open... You're pretty smart, and you're pretty open-minded, so you can, like, follow along to my craziness.
Mm-hmm.
Some people, they just get annoyed, and
Really?
they're like, okay, first of all, I wanted to say some stuff, and this guy just keeps going on. And, like, second of all, what he's talking about, he's just, like... It's not super interesting, it's super nerdy, it's super whatever, and I'm like, why is this happening? Like, so I think I'm kind of a divisive person in that. Like, there are some people who very understandably get super annoyed just talking to me. But I have been actively trying to improve my listening over the last maybe 4 years, 3 or 4
Well,
years.
that's so good.
Yeah.
Noticing that there can be something that can be improved upon, and then doing that.
Yeah. That was very much related to one of my, or my main job as a student. Or I don't mean as a student, but like my main side job that I've had while I've been a student. Because I used to be a TA in a course that's called Experts in Teams that we have on NTNU, where I'm graduating from. And that's all about like teaching teamwork. And as a teaching assistant, you're supposed to be like a group facilitator and talking to the groups and stuff. And when we did training for that, there was a really serious series of training workshops.
Okay.
For doing that job, and then we had like very good structured feedback rounds, and I would always get the feedback of like you could listen more, or you speak a lot, or you sometimes speak too much, or you sometimes speak without thinking, and I was like, yeah, it's all true. So I've been very actively trying to manage that.
Okay.
Over the last years.
That's cool.
Yeah. Because I'm not the kind of person who gets annoyed when I get feedback usually. If it's given to me genuinely, I usually appreciate it.
Right.
And even when it's given to me in a bad way, if it's given to me in a bad way, I'll get angry in the moment maybe, and then I'll think about it 2 days later, and I'll be like, oh, fuck.
Yeah.
I had a point.
Yeah. Me too. I always try to learn from feedback. I don't know. Constructive criticism, it helps a lot.
Yeah.
Because I feel like we can always grow as people and learn maybe what other people don't like about us, and see if that's actually something we want to change, if it's worth changing, and if it is, then do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is very important to what you're saying, because as a consequence of having like worked on the things I get feedback on, in taking that seriously and working on that, I sometimes get too caught up in like trying to appease everyone. So that's been a problem for me in the last few years that I'm just now catching up to and trying to like reconfigure myself.
Right.
So I was kind of like overcorrecting for the feedback. So instead of like not listening to anyone, I went to like, okay, now I'm listening to everyone too much. And that's also not productive. You gotta be selective in what feedback and you're listening to, and
Right.
who you actually want to appease. Because there's no point appeasing someone who's just gonna be annoying and you don't want to hang out with them anymore.
Exactly. Because, again, negative people that I've met would want more change out of me than I want to give. Because
Yeah, and
again,
it's not gonna be
other
healthy.
people, exactly, because other people wouldn't want that change, and that's completely fine to not, just for one person that maybe you don't want to change for.
So
Are you recording the screen right now?
no,
Okay.
maybe I should, but I'm not.
Do you
This-
know how to record a screen?
Yeah, you use a program called OBS. Open Broadcasting Software.
Oh,
So you
yeah?
just open this. It's free.
Oh, it is, dude. I've been
Dude.
wanting to do this for so long.
Yeah.
Because there's this video
And
that
then
I'm
you
thinking
just-
of doing, and
Remind me about this update later. This is input. You can just set up different scenes, and then you just set up a window capture like Google Chrome. Sure. And then once you open up the Google Chrome, it's gonna be recording. Now there's probably something I didn't want wrong, but like that's the whole thing, and you can record your webcam and stuff,
okay,
and combine it with like images, and
that's so
yeah.
cool.
It's really nice. So I've been playing some Pokemon Showdown,
Oh, nice.
which is very nerdy but sometimes fun. 'Cause
Right.
The rounds are pretty short.
Yeah, but sometimes really nerdy things are fun.
Oh, dude, I love nerdy things. I'm the
Like I
biggest
played
nerd.
Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome. It's awesome. Very dependent on the people.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
And actually trying to find times that work for people,
Ooh, that's a challenge
it's
too.
impossible.
Yeah, that's why we stopped the last time.
Yeah.
We were just like, we'd gone for like 2 or 3 sessions, and we were
Mhm.
just like, no, this is not happening.
It just doesn't work. There's so many, because every week a different person will be like, nah, I can't do it this week.
Yeah.
And then it just devolves into nobody trying anymore.
Yeah, it needs to be everyone needs to prioritize it really highly.
Exactly.
And set off a time.
Yeah.
And like be like, no, sorry, I have Dungeons and Dragons, I can't. Or I
Yeah.
have like some tabletop,
Mhm.
so I can't hang out, or I can't
Yeah.
do whatever. That's the only way it's gonna work.
But it's really difficult otherwise.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially because, like, you need, like, at least 4 or 5 people to make it fun. And having that big of a group be able to prioritize a time makes it really difficult.
Yeah. That is absolutely true. 4, I think, is the ideal. 1 GM and 3 players.
Yeah?
I think it's
I've
really
usually
good.
had 1 GM and 4
Yeah,
players.
1 GM and 4 is also really good. It
I'd
depends.
say, like, 1 GM and 3 players is best for planning. 1 GM and 4 players is best for, like, having fun.
Oh yeah, I would agree with that.
Mm.
Because 4 players, you have. If you're good friends and you're 4 players, it's
Yeah.
gonna be fun regardless.
Oh, seriously, yeah.
But it's way harder to get anything done
Yeah.
with that extra person.
The planning just goes amok.
Yeah.
One time I started a game and then it was like 4 players and over time nobody would show up. So every time I met someone that wanted to play D&D, I added them to the chat. So it ended up being like 9 people in the group chat.
Oh,
And I
nice.
got to a point where I was just like, okay, we're playing with whoever shows up. But it ended up just being me and 2 players.
Oh, nice.
Each week, and it was just so sad because out of 9 people, only 2 people would ever show up.
That is the struggle of the tabletopper.
It's so sad, and I've started. Wait, let's see. Okay, I've started 4 D&D games since I started college 2 years ago, and all of them have just stopped because nobody followed through on the planning.
Do you play GM?
I've been GM for 3 of those. One of the games I was just like, no, I'm done planning this. You can do this. I'll be a player. But that's just the thing that, like, I really enjoy being GM. I also
me
enjoy
too.
being a player. But the planning is just so painful that it just, that's the one thing I don't like about it. Because nobody prioritizes it except for me, usually. Maybe like 1 player. Maybe I'll have like 1 or 2 players that like actually genuinely are like, yes, we're always going to do this.
Yeah.
But it's hard to find a bunch of people who will prioritize it.
Yeah. We used to have like, we did like the most disastrous. I could do probably 20 episodes of just stupid stories from like how absurdly bad our role-playing groups were. They were awesome and terrible.
Oh, they're
They
so
were
fun.
so bad.
Yeah.
Like this was in like middle school, high school area.
Oh,
so
nice.
we were all, first of all, everything was in English, but our English was our second language. So
Okay.
obviously very,
Very bad.
yeah, very bad. And like, you're supposed to, in Norwegian, if you're playing a role-playing game in Norwegian, you're still supposed to say the dialogue in English that your character is saying.
Oh.
That's how you separate, which is really, really nice, because then there's a clear line of separation between you and the game and you talking about how you're
interesting.
playing the game.
Oh, okay.
So that is actually
Why
really
is
cool.
that?
It's just how everyone does it, because like when the GM reads like something from the book, it's in English, so everyone just responds in English with their characters and stuff.
Interesting.
Like all the names are in English, all
Yeah.
the spells and items and stuff.
Huh.
So that just becomes the language of discourse. But then, first of all, the English was terrible. No one understood what the fuck the point of playing role-playing was. Like, it took me until I had played role-playing games for 7 years to realize what the point of being a player in a role-playing game was. And I've been playering for most of the time.
What did you think before? Like, what were
Well,
you doing it for?
I was playing it like it was any other game. Like when I play, say I play Civilization or something. What's a game you've played?
I played Civilization.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in Civilization, you're like building your civilization, right?
Mhm.
You're like, okay, where do I want a town? What do I want to do? What is my strategy?
Yeah.
what's going on in the world, what are my tactics, do I want to like expand my military, do I want to go for this resource, what is my plan? And you're looking at all the information here, you're trying to craft like what do you think is the ideal path or the path that is going to lead you to success. So you're trying to min-max everything in order to make that plan go as smoothly as possible.
Yeah.
And that's how I would play role-playing games as well. So I would be the biggest like munchkin. I would always say the thing that was smartest, not the most accurate to my character.
Oh.
I would always like avoid all fights I could avoid. I would play every fight super smart. I would min-max everything. I would always say the things that was most likely to get me a benefit. I was always really oriented about progress, about building my character. I would like never risk something to save someone else. I would be like, okay, they can make a new character. I don't want to risk anything from my character. And it was really effective.
Right.
Like, my characters never died. The only way they died was my character sheet got lost.
Right.
Which we were so disorganized that was a really serious problem that happened. I had such good characters and they were just like, nope, lost the sheet.
Yeah.
And the room was just, it was at my friend's house and
Yeah.
the room was so immensely cluttered. You have never seen something like this. Just dust bunnies, piano notes, role-playing figures and everything just in a smush. All over the bed, all over the chairs, all over the floor, and you had to like dig through the stuff to get your character sheet that had probably been erased and used again several times, and then you'd just be like, okay, where's my item sheet? And then you'd be like, no, you have my item sheet, give it back. It was terrible. So I could just go on and on about that.
That's so funny.
Yeah, it was so terrible too. We
Yeah.
had like a GM that was like out to get players.
Oh god, that's
for
the
a time.
worst.
I was just like, yeah, you get assaulted by these people and they're way stronger and they're just like for you. Or like
Your
just-
entire party gets hit by an asteroid and you all die at the end.
yeah, and you know how you're like sometimes when you're not super invested, you'll just make some really a little bit exaggerated and simplified actions. You'll be like, okay, I'm gonna drink a lot at this tavern, so I'm gonna buy 7 beers.
Yeah.
Because it's just easy, like, okay,
Right.
that's what I'm doing. And then my GM would be like, okay, you get a disease from drinking 7 beers, and they would roll on a disease table. And we were playing a game that's called Warhammer Fantasy role-playing game. It's a really old one. We were playing 2nd edition,
Okay.
and it's a really big. So how many role-playing games have you played?
Only really Dungeons and Dragons.
This is the fight that got me into jiu-jitsu. It's
Eddie Bravo is the guy that...
Eddie Bravo versus Hoyler Gracie. So this guy was like a total legend and one of the the founders and the main guys of jiu-jitsu. And this is like a California guy who lives in LA, who's a one of Joe Rogan's best friends. And they had a fight back in the day where where Eddie Bravo got a finish on him. And then they were like, everyone was like, oh, it was just a fluke. It was just like a thing that happened back in the day. No one gave him any respect for it because he was kind of like an outsider at the time. And then they had this rematch again, and it's just a really fun fight to watch.
Interesting.
So if you're ever interested in checking out jiu-jitsu,
Okay.
this is like the best fight to start with watching.
For sure.
And watch. This is the actual fight, but watch like his breakdown of it. Like here in this video, he breaks down what he did in the fight on Joe Rogan. And it's so good. So I'm just gonna leave that in the background.
Okay,
it's such a
for
cool
sure.
fight. But anyway, I was talking about role playing.
Yeah, I've only really played Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition because I just got into
5th
it
edition.
a couple years ago.
I've never played that. I think.
Yeah, I played. Okay, so I played briefly in 4th grade, but I was like really not into it at the time, and I think we played 3rd edition, but
Yeah.
I didn't get into it until 5th edition.
Yeah.
Well, I haven't played any of the other editions, but I hear like 3rd is like the classic that most people like, and that's
3.5.
what 3.5, and
Yeah.
Pathfinder was based off of that when they went into 4th edition.
Yeah.
I heard 4th edition was harder to get into, but some people really like it.
I
And then-
actually like 4th edition, but I've only played it once and I was really into it then.
Okay.
But everyone I know says it's terrible.
Hmm.
They really like Pathfinder and they're really into
Gotcha.
3.5.
5th edition was Wizards of the Coast trying to like synthesize all the good things from their previous ones and just like make one that's really coherent and easy to get into, but also like works.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good one. Like I've really enjoyed playing with it, and a lot of the adventures are fun to play.
That's the most important part.
Yeah,
Like, if it's fun to play.
yeah. Because at the end of the day, the edition doesn't really matter.
No.
It's just getting together with friends and having a fun time.
Yeah.
I don't really care about the rules. I'm just trying to have a fun.
Yeah. And we've played. Man, we used to play so much role-playing games back in the day. So, so many tabletops. We played a lot of different ones, but we even did sheetless ones where you just didn't even have like. There was just a story,
Oh,
a
that's so
narrative, and a
cool.
setting, and then there was no stats. So we based that off of. There's a role-playing game called Call of Cthulhu.
Mm-hmm.
That's like a little bit of a horror-centric, kind of steampunky, based on H.P. Lovecraft
Okay.
stuff. And there are character sheets and like a combat system and stuff, but it's generally not used a lot, at least
Okay.
in ours. So we actually just did those pretty much without any combat or anything, and it was very effective at just like spinning an intriguing narrative, and like we managed to get like a good kind of scary atmosphere sometimes too,
Yeah.
which was cool.
All right.
But yeah, we played Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 2nd edition.
Okay.
And the thing with that role-playing game is that it's insanely... it's kind of like the Dark Souls of role-playing games, if that analogy makes sense to you.
I've never played Dark Souls.
It's not my biggest game either, but the point of it is that it's really hard, and it has a lot of
Okay.
like stuff that's intentionally difficult about it.
Oh.
And that's the same with fantasy roleplay. It's where Dungeons and Dragons is the very romantic heroes fighting villains in dungeons and dragons and saving people and stuff, and everything going according to plan mechanically, and like you have to kind of it's kind of like just having fun and going on an adventure.
Yeah.
Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay is set in the Warhammer Fantasy universe, which is extremely dirty and grimy, and everything is about like people losing hope and this like all these invading forces taking over different parts of humanity, and like people being ridden with diseases and attacked by like plague or corruption, and there's like all these it's always like all the stories are always like the occult chaos cults have infiltrated someone and spreading disease, or it's like the rat creatures have taken over the sewer system and are threatening to invade, or it's always like just a terrible time. Everyone is never like not to play, but like
Yeah,
for the characters, no one is having fun,
Okay.
which is very different, I think, from a lot of how Dungeons and Dragons work. Would you say so as well?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and I didn't. When I started out, that was just like, okay, that's how I do it. That's fine, and I'd only played a little bit of Dungeons and Dragons, so I was like, okay, this is cool. It's fine. I didn't really understand why, if that was better or worse, and because I kind of took that for granted, like, okay, that's how the system is.
Right.
But having thought more about it, and obviously I'm really into game design too, so that was always just so cool to me, how much character and how interesting the world becomes once you add all these terrible, annoying obstacles and like
Right.
every like it's not like you go to a merchant and you can sell your stuff and buy some stuff. It's always like you have to like get a grip on their personality, try to avoid getting scammed, figure out what they actually have. Like maybe you need to threaten him, or maybe you need to steal the things from his house, maybe you need to attack him, maybe he doesn't have what you need at all, or maybe he won't give you a fair price no matter what. It's like everything's a struggle in that game.
Right. Well, I find that interesting because I kind of do that with my D&D games. Like, I always add character to any store that characters go into. I try and make pretty much every interaction interesting.
That is good.
Because it just brings the players into the world more.
Yeah.
And I like getting into different characters as a DM because I also really like playing like player characters.
Yeah.
But I just find, well, it helps both me and the players immerse in the world when it feels like the people that they're interacting with are real and there's more obstacles than just getting things.
Yes.
Especially because in a medieval setting, you're not going to just walk into any random store in some small village and get anything you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it's like but usually people like they add character, but it's like they add some niceness too. It's usually a lot of like, okay, you could meet a guy that sucks, but a lot of the people you meet are gonna be helpful or nice.
Right.
In the way we played fantasy roleplay, everything just always sucked. Like there was not a straight merchant anywhere. You could never get what you wanted. If you were looking for, and in that game, if you want to progress, so it's about like you have these careers, and they're all like everything about your character is chosen at random too, which is I hated before, but it's actually super genius and cool.
Yeah.
Because you're like just this motley crew of unlikely heroes who are like rat catchers and thugs and mercenaries and just hunters and random people who've been assigned careers, and they have like you roll for your stats and everything is like you just gotta like roll with the punches. That's the kind of play style it encourages. So when you're like the way we would play it, which was probably really counterproductive, is you need to, so in the game you need to assemble these items to progress to another career, like to go from bounty hunter to like a veteran, and then from a veteran into like a champion or something.
Yeah.
That was like a classic. And you need to get this kind of armor, you need to get this kind of weaponry, need to get like a permit from someone that you can become a captain or whatever it is your career needs in the game. And it would always be impossible to get because the GM would just be like, "Oh, you need a writing kit to become a scribe." Okay, well, this guy doesn't have a writing kit. No one in town has a writing kit. Like, we didn't understand that the GM is supposed to like give the players opportunities to reach their goals. So it would just be like playing in this like 7 to 8 sessions where there's no chance for any character progression, and you're just like, okay.
Man.
And we were just like, we were probably a lot of fluctuating people that we didn't like, that were like in and out throughout the years, and then like a core of like 5 people where 3 to 4 usually showed up, and then it was just completely random, and then different people would play all the time. And there was one guy who the guy whose house we played at, he was the only guy who was there all the time. We tried playing without him, and we were just like, nah, this sucks. Fuck this. His name is Peter. He's like one of my like childhood friends. And he was just like the guy who his room was super messy, but he always like made sure to like read all the books and was really good at, actually in a lot of ways a really good GM.
Okay.
Because he was really willing to do the prep work. That's my main problem in everything. I just hate doing prep work.
Oh, true. I also, well, whenever I'm GMing, sometimes I'll go really into the prep work, but sometimes I'll just make stuff up as I go.
Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes you can do that in a convincing enough way that it works. Because I also like when players just go off the rails, because you can never expect anything to go a certain way in a campaign.
Yeah.
Because, again, you're playing with people who are thinking in a completely different way from you.
Yeah,
so
keep talking, I'm getting water.
So you'll have situations where where a player will have their character do something that you never expected.
Yeah.
So you have to think of a solution, and sometimes you'll want to could I also get water? Please. Yeah. Thanks.
Of course.
You'll have to think of a way around what they're doing, and then also think of a way to get it back into the plot that you were trying to go for originally.
This is like the pilot episode of the podcast.
Yeah.
Where I test everything and figure out, like, is the battery gonna die? Is the memory card gonna die? What format is it? Will the audio be unusable because I was like sitting this way or whatever?
Yeah. Well, thank you for letting me be on your pilot episode.
Wow.
Very sweet of you.
I think it was very sweet of you to come.
Thank you.
Because I think having just the quality of conversation is so important to me. And so I was immediately picking up like how active a listener you were and like how interested you were in the conversations. Because I feel like it's not just about the quality of conversation technically, but also like the content.
Right.
And we were like very on the same wavelength.
Yeah, because I feel like our conversations are good because they go to so many different levels.
Yeah.
And we can just segue to different conversation topics so easily.
Yeah.
That it allows for...
We have a lot in common.
Yeah, we really do.
Or there's a lot of space that we're both willing to explore. Even though we might not have the same... Like, you were talking about stuff that I'd never... would have never picked up on my own, like the pyramid stuff.
Right, yeah.
For example. But it's still, like, within the area of something I might be interested in talking about.
Yeah.
Which is the cool thing. It's the good level of, like, a lot in common so we can...
Yeah.
have good discourse, but not so much in common that we can't learn anything.
Right, because I've definitely learned a lot about cooking from you.
Nice. Wow. Well, maybe I'll make more videos and then...
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah, if people like that, if you liked it, then it's an indication that that's something I should pursue more.
Yeah.
If like I make 5 of them and no one's like showing any interest, then it's like, okay, fine. I tried it. It was fun.
Right.
But the fact that you're saying you liked it is an indication that that's probably something I should be doing.
Definitely.
Or at least it's worth trying out. But yeah, there was something about like role playing and Warhammer Fantasy and how crazy that game is. So the point was that our GMs would always be behaving terribly towards their players. They would always be like, well, and we would have like the whipping boy of the crew.
Always.
Yeah, who was like the guy who always, his characters always died and he had to make new characters. And he really liked making characters though.
Oh, okay. So that's good at least.
The sad thing about it was he was actually a way better player than I was.
Oh, okay.
Like, not in terms of getting your character into beneficial situations. I was really good at that.
Right.
But actually playing his characters,
yeah.
Getting into interesting, like, okay, I'm the kind of character who does this, and then he actually would like live with that integrity in his characters to a way bigger extent than I did. So he was actually a way better player than me, but I would always seemingly do better just because I was so focused on making progress, developing my character, doing the story. I was always the guy who was like, okay, let's not joke around, guys. Let's focus on the story.
Gotcha.
Kind of like the fun police guy of the group. Which I think sometimes is needed, but I can definitely go too much towards that side of like, I so adore like rules and order and stuff that sometimes if it gets too jokey and too out there, I'm like, no, let's get into the structure. I need the structure and the rules and the system again, guys. Come on.
Yeah, I've definitely had that where I think one time pretty recently I was doing something and then I was busy for the beginning of the night, but later in the night I was planning on going over to my friends for a game night they were having. And then by the time I got to the game night, everybody there was just super drunk.
Oh.
So I walk in with my deck of cards and my games that I brought, and like nobody was in the mindset to play games, but I was like, hey, does everyone want to try learning poker? And then they were always like, yes, let's do it. But then it was just impossible to do it with because as soon as nobody knew how to play the game. So I was just explaining the rules, but everyone was just like drunk and falling over. And it was interesting. I mean, we kind of had fun, but had to fun police a little, but you know, what you gonna do besides get drunk and play poker?
Yeah, it is an important role to have sometimes.
Yeah.
That is what I tell myself to feel good anyway.
To what?
That's what I tell myself to feel good about my own.
To fun police or?
Yeah, to I tell myself that it's important to have like someone who fun polices sometimes.
Yeah.
Because even though it's like disrupting a good flow, maybe.
Yeah.
It still does like. It does feel good to make progress in the long run. Like
Definitely.
that does promote like a healthier progression.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're just meeting up and nothing's happening, then that does get stale after a few times of doing it.
That's true.
But having that through line and that progression is important to some extent too.
Yeah.
So there is something to be said for it, even though I probably have been doing it too much and still sometimes do it too much.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is definitely a role-playing game I recommend, though, if you
Okay.
ever... If it sounds interesting to you.
Yeah,
to, like,
it does sound interesting.
deal with fucking super annoying bullshit 90% of the time. But it's annoying in this kind of realistic... Almost,
Yeah.
It's very George R. R. Martin, actually.
Oh, okay.
Because
Cool.
his world is very
Realistic.
much... Very grimy and very realistic.
Yeah,
and very
'cause-
full of, like...
You never know what's gonna happen.
Yeah, and it's full of all these kinds of annoying things. You're like, okay, like if you're following Arya, you're like, okay, she's gonna learn to fight by Syrio, and then it's gonna be cool. And then you're like, oh, nope, she's going to the wall, I guess. She's going this way with these people, okay?
Yeah.
But she's gonna, like, break out and be this, like, cool person and get
Yeah.
reunited. And then just stuff keeps happening that's annoying. That
Pretty
kind of,
much.
That kind of storyline is perfect for Warhammer Fantasy
Mhm.
Roleplay. It's very, like, it's not like get the item and give it to the guy. It's like you're trying to get to the item, but someone else got it, and then you're tracking them down, and then you're figuring out that the cult was behind it, the whole thing, and then when you're bringing the item back, actually the person you're bringing it to is the evil person, and then you're like, oh my god, what the fuck, and then the item turns out to be fake, and there's a duplicate. It's like it doesn't have to be that
Sounds
complicated,
ridiculous. Yeah,
but it
does.
that's way more the kind of adventure that is
Mhm.
that you can find yourself having, which I think is so much more interesting.
Yeah.
And it took me a while to appreciate that.
Mm-hmm. I'm getting a group together this summer, and I'm definitely trying to do something new, so maybe I'll get some elements of that
Yeah.
in there.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
cool thing, though. You can get
Uh-huh.
elements
Yeah, exactly.
from different play styles and different
Mhm.
game types, even though it's very... even though you're playing one system.
Yeah.
Because it's so flexible.
Yeah, exactly. The whole thing is just making things up, basically. It's
Yeah.
just playing pretend as a group. That's how I describe it to people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That is what it is.
And it's so fun. I feel like people... I definitely recommend it to anyone, because I feel like a lot of people just think of it as just a super nerdy thing.
It is a super nerd.
It is a super nerdy thing, but then again, it's fun. I mean,
Yeah.
you're playing pretend in a group of people. What's better than that?
Yeah.
Exercising your imagination.
But I think you need to be someone you need to be kind of creative and
Mhm.
also kind of open-minded and willing to
Yeah.
put yourself out there and also get invested in a story and in a character and in what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the same. You brought up poker, and you probably had those poker games where there's no stakes, and and the people don't really know poker that well,
Mhm.
and you're like trying to teach them, and they just like get a random hand, and they're like, I'm gonna bluff, so I'm gonna go all in,
Mhm.
and then they just do it, and then they're like, oh, I lost, or oh, I won,
Yeah.
and it's like, this sucked. That was a terrible experience for
Yeah.
everyone. There needs to be. That's why someone told me, like, I had a friend who was really into poker,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, why? Like, what's the deal? And then we played with no stakes, and it was like, see, this is why you need stakes. And before that, I was like, stakes suck. I don't want to give anyone money.
Right. Yeah.
But then I was like, oh, it makes sense. Because
Yeah.
when there's stakes, people get invested.
Yeah.
And it's in investing that it's interesting.
Exactly.
So the stakes are just a method to get people invested. It's not about the stakes. It's not about winning the
Mhm.
money. And then I was like, oh, that's actually pretty cool then.
Mm-hmm.
So just finding ways of, as long as the people are engaged, then it's
Yeah.
gonna be fun.
Right.
But it's hard to like convince someone to like it, because then they're not gonna be engaged, and then
Yeah.
it's not gonna be fun.
And that's why D&D is so hard for me to get started, because the people that are just starting are never super invested, you know?
Yeah.
They're just half invested, and they're like, I'll go, I won't go this week. And it's hard to just get that consistency
Yeah.
and commitment out of someone who isn't fully engaged.
Yeah. They need to find that that spark of like, oh, this is something, here I find like something that I'm interested in.
Yeah.
For me, that the thing I found was the system or the rules, and the problem is like then you end up playing only for your character and like only for, which was a problem. It took me a while to realize that another like big hook is the theater and like the story and the storytelling of the thing, of the whole whatever campaign or whatever story you're doing,
Right.
which you can also very actively partaking in as a character. Especially if your GM is good, you can very actively shape what's going on in like the narrative of the story. And it took me a while to realize how engaging that can be if you're doing it through the lens of an interesting character.
Okay. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. But it's been a while since I've played role playing games now. It's been like a year, I think.
Well, it's been a while since I've been able to consistently have a group.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, consistent grouping I haven't had for like 6 years or like 8 years. Maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, we had a really consistent group for like a solid 5-6 years.
That's impressive.
With a lot of in and out people, but many of the, like my friend Peter and me and like a few others were super consistent.
Wow.
Like 5 others or 3 others. I mean, we're
Yeah.
like the really consistent 5 people who, and we might still, if I'm in Bergen and everyone's there, we could still like get a role playing session going.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
And then we can always laugh at, because we even in our stupidity and ignorance, we would realize how stupid and ignorant we were sometimes, and we would be like, oh, remember the time I said that? And that was like someone would make a super out of character thing, or like we had like all these classics of, like there was one time where we were reading a paragraph of the narrative from a book, and it was like you're going through the gates of a city, and then there's like a description of the people in the alleys, and they look really rugged and tough, and it's like a tough neighborhood and stuff. And then so this happens, and that's like the scene, and then you're supposed to move towards the castle to talk to a guy or whatever in the story. And then immediately after the paragraph was read, like one of my friends, like one of the guys, he was like, wait, I didn't get that. Are we getting attacked by bandits? He had just like not understood a single word of what was going on. He just heard the word thug somewhere in there, and he was like, oh, thug, I know that. So that was like one of the classics.
Man. Yeah. I kind of have that issue where I just zone out in role playing, and then by the time something happens, I'm just like, wait, where are we?
Yeah.
I have no clue what's happening right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is a problem that can happen.
Yeah. And then people will get mad at me. I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's something I don't very often do, at least.
Yeah.
As bad as I sometimes am of a listener, I'm to like people in conversation, I'm really good at actually listening to things and staying concentrated about, like, I'm really good with audiobooks. I know some people get really distracted listening to audiobooks, but I can usually keep my concentration about them as long as they're interesting.
Okay.
And also, like, listening to classes and lectures and being engaged in games and in movies and in everything, I really engage with that pretty seriously. I think my problem in listening in conversations is more that I just so much love to talk that it's like I have to sacrifice talking to listen, which is sometimes hard to convince myself to do.
Okay.
It's not that I don't necessarily enjoy the listening, and especially now I really do enjoy the listening.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it took me a while to realize.
Yeah. I guess I just have that problem of zoning out, not just in like audio, but also just reading.
Yeah.
I'll tend to do that where I'm just like
yeah.
reading, and then my mind will go somewhere completely different, and then I'll be down like a page, and I'm like, oh, I have no clue what just happened.
Yeah.
But
I do that for sure too.
yeah, I feel like working on that in terms of listening is really important. And then also, if you can't do that, just fake it. Pretend like you really know what was going on, but still try to know what was going. Like, try to listen as much as you can.
Yeah, sometimes you just gotta. It's not worth it to be like, wait, what was happening? You just gotta.
Yeah,
like,
you
okay.
just got to go on with it, and then just know that you're not going to get that back
Yeah.
for the sake of the other person.
That is, there was someone that used to live in our dorm. That was just, we didn't like her very much, and she had this habit of like asking people what they just said in conversation, but the conversation was moving on. So then you're like trying to listen to the conversation, but also like trying to figure out exactly what you said and like what did you mean, what did I say when, like what's going on. It was always super annoying because you were like, I know what I meant, but I can't rephrase exactly what I've said, and also I want to like stay in this conversation. So that was just super annoying.
Yeah.
Because she was just like trying to figure out if what you said was offensive, so she could take offense in case it was. And it was just like, wow, this is not a productive pattern.
No. I feel like a lot of people just actively try to take offense to a lot of things now.
That's a California thing, I think. A little
Just
bit
California,
too.
really?
No, it's an everywhere thing. It's a social media thing, but it is extra prominent in California, I think.
That's interesting.
Not that I would actually know,
Uh-huh.
but it's just like, I feel like as good as all the liberalism in California is, in a lot of ways, it also has had the negative side effect of allowing people too much in the way of taking like a more of a victim role in a lot of things.
That's true.
Focusing on like eliminating segregation and discrimination and stuff has sometimes had too much focus on victims, which does give this edge to anyone who takes a victim role.
Right.
And that has some negative things about it, which I think like that mentality can really affect the dynamics people get into.
Definitely. I've seen that, I don't know, people can get offended on behalf of other people, and then it causes issues in a variety of ways. I don't know. It's just hard to include everyone in a reasonable way that makes sense.
Yeah, how do you
But
mean?
people expect that. Well, just a lot of the current trend of I don't. What's the? Sorry, I'm blanking.
I feel like this is kind of associated with like the diversity doctrine a little bit.
It's diversity, but it's inclusion. Oh wait, I'm just missing the main word. I don't know. Trying to include people of all people.
Yeah, like trying to include people of like all kinds of various configurations.
Yeah.
I think it's always the correct thing to do.
I think it's reasonable to do. I think diversity is something that we really should strive for in media, but if a lot of media sources are doing it now just for the sake of like saying that they're doing it, and they're doing it in a very forced way that just doesn't feel right.
It's like a token.
The token. It's like if you try to put a gay character in a film and just be like, oh, look how progressive we're being, we have a gay character in our film, that's not helping anyone. But if you like actually write in a gay character that's not just gay for the sake of being gay, they just are a character like that. If that's not their primary characteristic, because there should be more to a character than their sexuality or their gender or their race. It's about having good characters.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what a lot of media now is lacking in including everybody. They're detracting from having good characters in favor of just having token characters.
And I think the tokenism and just like the false diversity, which is like the same like just including people for the sake of it, and just being like, oh, we're so progressive because we have a black gay dude on, and also like I don't know, whatever minority you want to get, like a transgendered person or someone from some minority that you can find.
Yeah.
And then just being like, okay, we have this, so now we're good. And now we can say this thing, and it changes our behavior and stuff. I think that is actually way more like of a racist and discriminatory thing.
Yeah, it's working against what people are doing.
Yeah.
It's still like focusing on the fact that this person is of that ethnicity or sexuality, as opposed to just including these people in a normal way.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That is I think, so that's what racism or what anti-racism and equal rights used to be. Was like Martin Luther King. He was like, hey, everyone should be treated not based on the color of their skin, but of the contents of their character. And that is the opposite of like being, you can say this because you're black, but you can't say this because you're white, and you can say this because you're Asian, but you can't say this if you're Jewish. And that's the opposite. That is racism. That is being like, you can do this because you're this race. It doesn't matter who's in power or what's going on. To me, anyway, that's been the new rebranded racism, where it's like, oh, this group is in power and this is a minority or whatever. So then we have different rules and stuff.
Right.
I'm not a fan of that. I'm a fan of, who cares what color you are and who you like to sleep with and what you want to do. We're just people.
We're all people.
Yeah.
We want to respect each other. I respect everybody. I enjoy having conversations with everybody that I meet, and I feel like we can learn from everybody, and I just try to be nice to everyone that I can. And I wish I'm sad that the media doesn't have good inclusion of everybody, and I hope one day there can be, but I just hope they don't go about it in a forced fashion.
Yeah. I think the best thing you can do if you want to change that is not to get angry, which I see a lot of people doing. I know you don't, but I see a lot of people who get like frustrated and get complainy and get like, oh, there's not enough women represented such and such, or like, when you see gays in movies, they always die and it's a sympathy, whatever. The best way of curing that is not to complain about it. It's way more to just write good characters.
Right.
And just, if you write a character and that character happens to be gay, so what?
Yeah.
If that's a natural part of his character, then that's great. And if you just wanted to have a gay character, then maybe you should consider what your actual motivations were, if that's necessarily correct.
Right.
You know, or necessarily gonna like add anything to what you're doing. Because I love it when I see actually just natural good representation.
Right. Because it feels like the real world. Because you don't meet someone who's gay and then that's not their primary personality trait, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
that's never the primary personality trait.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can't even tell.
Exactly.
And
And that's how you meet them in the real world. Maybe you'll learn that. They'll say, maybe you meet a guy and then halfway through a conversation, he'll be like, oh, my boyfriend and I do such and such. And that's just how the world works. You don't...
Yeah.
I don't...
And
it's not forced.
My way of, like, talking about those issues has always been of, like, yeah, so what?
Right.
Because I've been around a lot of... While I've been a student, like, I used to live in my dorm was like full of gay people, and we would make like gay jokes all the time, and it was awesome. And one of my best friends from my what's it called, my course, I guess. One of my best friends from my program was also gay, or is also gay. So it's, but I've always had the issue of like, if we're talking seriously, then it's always like, yeah, who cares? I mean, I might care in just like, I care about interesting facts about you as a person, sure.
Right.
But it's not going to change, like, oh, then let's talk about this subject. Or it's not going to change that at all. So when someone tells me they're gay, I'm always just like, oh, okay,
Okay, now I know that about you. That's cool.
cool fun fact.
Yeah.
Unless it's, of course, if it's relevant to the conversation and in another way, then you're like, okay, so then it makes sense that you would be like,
Right.
behavior that's associated.
But then again, there is so much homophobia that still exists that it
I'm sure it
does
is.
make sense that it's difficult for people in general
Yeah.
to come out.
And also racism and transphobia has been crazy just because that's been really hurt by all these people who are complaining and who are like SJWing everything. It has really hurt the trans people who are actually just trans people, normal people.
Right.
And I know these people, some of them. I have trans friends and they're awesome and
Yeah,
they're
me
not
too.
like, hey, we have been victimized, we want our rights back. They're like, hey, we're just super cool normal people who
Right.
happen to be trans, and we're not crying out for trans rights and everything. We're just like, hey, let's make these laws a little better so our lives get easier, and let's accept everyone for who they are. That's their mode. They're not like, we need to invent new genders, and we need to make everyone say these pronouns, and we need to like arrest people who accidentally call someone he when they identify as she. They're never the people who cry out for that. That's
Right.
different people.
Yeah. Again,
in
it's
my
people that are offended on behalf of other people.
Yeah.
And you see that a lot now.
Yeah.
And again, I feel like if we have a media that includes everybody, but in a not forced way.
And just like include whoever you would include normally, regardless of whatever identification they fall under.
Exactly.
Yeah. And if that happens to be only white men for a thing, that's not a problem. That's not like that was only probably racist. It's like, no. It just happened to be only white men for that one. And then for this one, it's only black women, and that's also not racists. Maybe they're appealing to black women. Maybe they're in a context where interviewing black women makes sense. It's like, hey, as a black woman, how does living in this neighborhood, it wouldn't make sense to like interview me, like a Norwegian white guy who's like, I've never lived there. Is this relevant to me? Like, oh no, we need the diversity, and what's your opinion as whatever group you're from? I was like, I don't have an opinion on this.
Right.
So why are you asking? Like, don't force me into being diverse for this situation. Like,
Yeah.
ask whoever it's relevant to ask. But it's so rare that it's relevant. Like a lot of these group denominations, it's like, Christian says this, or like atheist says this, or woman says.
It's a lot of grouping people, like just having these thoughts, grouping certain groups of people and just thinking, oh, everyone that's like this thinks this.
Yeah.
And wants this.
Yeah.
And then we should do this for them. Or if you just say, oh, I disagree with everyone who thinks this, and you never really know what they're thinking. And I think that comes in part a lot in America and just the two-party system in general.
Yeah, that doesn't help.
With the internet, at least, we've just become so polarized that it's difficult for people to have civil discussions anymore. Like pretty much any... I mean, again, I probably shouldn't be looking at YouTube comment section, but like...
well, I have that problem.
But you just see, like, anytime there's a video that's, like, slightly controversial, it'll always be, like, liberals are like, oh, conservatives are all evil, and then conservatives are all like, oh, all liberals are special snowflakes, and it's just, it's so counterproductive. We're never gonna, like, actually get anything done when both sides are at each other's throats and just automatically discount anything each other says just on account of saying they're liberal or conservative.
Yeah. And it's so... That's why having conversations is so important. And trying to actually listen to... Not to the words that the other person is saying, but to try to understand how the other person thinks through what they're saying.
Right.
Which I think is lost on a lot of people. It's pretty hard to do, though.
Yeah. Because I feel like a lot of people are actually more moderate, but, like...
Yeah.
label themselves as either like whichever side they lean to, and then people will just group them as having all these thoughts when really people could have thoughts on both sides.
Yeah.
I saw a Reddit thread the other day that asked conservatives what's the most liberal view they have and vice versa. And it was actually, the entire thread was 100% civil. It was all just people discussing how, like, which sides they fall on in different issues, and they were all just open to discussion. And I was like, wow, I've never seen such a civil amount of comments, especially on a Reddit thread about politics. It's surprising.
It's insane.
Yeah.
That's what you get.
And
when
I'm
you-
glad.
Yeah.
Because I feel like the internet is simultaneously, I heard this somewhere today, I think, but the internet is like simultaneously the best and the worst invention that's ever happened. Because on one hand, it like polarizes people, like it makes people group each other into certain things, and it's really divided, but also it really brings people together to share ideas with people that they never be able to find out about before. Like, I'll be able to find out about some I don't know, some dish that I want to cook in some country that I've never heard of before, just by typing in certain words in a search bar. It's amazing. Nobody's ever been able to do that before. There's never been that level of globalization and knowing about other people that you never would have known of before.
Yeah.
And it's difficult that it's brought people apart, but I feel like in the long run it may help bring people together. Hopefully. But I tend to be optimistic about certain things.
I think it is. As much as there are problems, I think it ultimately will be a source for good.
Because I feel like overall society's been going more and more open. Because I just find it amazing that, like, between 2008 and 2016, people went from, like, the overall society was completely against gay marriage to being legalizing it.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's not just like an entire, usually that'll happen over a generation where like one generation is homophobic and then the next one is not, and then it'll switch. But it's like people actually changed their mind this time around. I feel like the internet has been able to spread ideas, and people have been able to meet people that have different ideas, and enough people change their minds to want to be like, hey, maybe people should get to love whoever they want to and marry whoever they want to.
Yeah.
And then they actually were able to change their minds and get that legalized, and I think that was amazing.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
And it just goes to show, like you were saying earlier, with all the people agreeing and having like this really civil discourse. When you try to agree as much as you can with someone versus trying to disagree as much as you can with someone, that changes everything. Just that one shift in perspective of like, and it's the same. I find this is something we talked about last time. Last time you were here, I think I was talking about like finding things in a song you don't like, where you're looking for things you like, even though you don't like the song. You're like, okay, but I like this riff, even though I hate the song. I like this riff,
Right?
Or I like this outro bass line, and hey, that hook it wasn't super cool, but that part he did with the vocals was kind of cool.
Yeah.
And then gradually you're like, okay, now I have some cornerstones to how this house is gonna look. I have some pieces, then I can understand the rest in context of this. It's like kind of the same thing where you're looking for these things you like.
Yeah.
Things you can relate to, things you can understand,
Of
and
course.
then working off of that to like to get closer to someone, a piece of art, or to another person's perspective.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably why that thread was so good, was just because the premise was find something to agree with the other
That's
side.
true. Because it wasn't just like, because conservatives, why do you think of this conservative thing? And then the entire thread is just liberals bashing on them, or vice versa.
Yeah.
It was just finding common ground.
Yeah.
And it was nice to see, because like I saw things that I didn't agree with on both sides, but I was still like, this is cool to read because I'm getting different views.
Yeah. That's the worst when you're like, or I mean, it's not actually the worst, but it's the worst when you're like finding something you're like, oh, I don't like this position, and then you're like, fuck, but it makes so much sense.
Yeah.
And it just makes more and more sense, and you're like, oh, have I been wrong on this?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. Well, I find it interesting because I feel like at least now a lot of people tend to, on both sides, they tend to just not want to associate with anyone on the other side of the political spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not productive. I know before Antonin Scalia passed away a couple years ago, he and Ruth Bader Ginsburg were actually really close friends.
Who are these people?
They're both Supreme Court justices.
Oh.
So, like, they basically decide which way the country's going to head based on their and 7 other people's votes on issues. And Ruth Bader Ginsburg is super liberal, and Antonin Scalia is, like, super conservative. And they're actively working against each other in their job. That's what they do. But they were best friends, like, outside of that. And I think that's honestly such a good role model. Just, you can be on different sides of the political spectrum and disagree on certain things and still find common ground and be friends with each other.
Yeah.
You don't have to 100% agree with someone to enjoy their company.
Yeah. I mean, if you had to, there'd be quite a lot of people you could get along with.
Exactly.
Probably everyone in the world.
And that's why that's an issue, I think.
Yeah.
Because I see a lot of people that are just like, oh, if you don't agree with me, then you're an awful person, and that's not productive at all.
Like, if you like Trump, you suck, no matter what else
Right.
is about your personality. Or if you like Hillary, you're just a terrible human being. And it's like, maybe.
And it was like that on both sides of the board, and it's not productive.
Both sides, and on every side of the table is always full of, like, someone who's. There's always people who want to make these sweeping generalizations where they just filter all of human complexity into this binary: likes Hillary, then I like you; hates Hillary, then I don't like you.
Exactly.
And those are your 2 options for what kind of person you are. And it's like, I don't think
humanity works like that. I think we're more complex than that.
Yeah.
And that's why I think the 2-party system just doesn't work in our country, because there's so many more viewpoints than that.
Yeah.
I mean, like, we're one of the most diverse nations that exist. Probably the most diverse.
Probably. I mean, yeah.
But we're just such a melting pot of every culture that immigrates here, and that's what I mean, not what we've always been. That's what we say we've always been, but definitely not been the case. But I think we're going in that direction, and yet grouping people into 2 categories, that just doesn't work.
Yeah.
Especially the sheer amount of different viewpoints you can get in this country.
I heard someone talk about this. I think it was actually Naval, the guy on Joe Rogan.
Mm-hmm.
What's his name again? Naval Ravikant, I think. Yeah. This guy. Not this guy. This is Joe. The other guy. Him. He was talking about that, and it was like, his point was that because whoever gets to 51 wins, whoever gets 51% of the votes, or representatives, wins the whole election, and they take everything. That makes it so you have to. That makes everything very, like, that funnels everyone into either you're 100% Republican or 100% Democrat
Right.
in your views, at least your official views, if you're interested in politics. But if it was more of a diverse system where you maybe you had representation, even at the losing party had representation, and you could have representation for different cases and stuff, and different, and maybe you could have different parties involved as well, and having like, okay, we only care about like coastlines, so get these people in on the coastline issues, and like let's vote about that, and let's figure that out. I think that would be, there's something to that idea of like the system being a little difficult to work with.
Yeah.
For all of this.
Because again, the system was invented 250 years ago by people who were organizing a very smaller amount of space for mostly English, like British Puritans.
Yeah.
It was a completely different group of people that were trying to run the country. So
Yeah.
and the world's just changed so much, like with the internet and with globalization. It's hard to adapt the system in such a way.
Yeah, and the changes that have been made, some of them have been terrible, like the Patriot Act.
Yeah.
It just takes all the power away from the people, and before that is gone, like, no one in the country has a say on anything.
Yeah.
If you're not, like, a billionaire, then your vote doesn't matter, nothing you do matters. It's like,
Right.
very clever marketing, though, to call it the Patriot Act.
Oh my
It's
god.
so smart. I can't believe that worked. That's like the most childish trick ever. It's like, that's like shitting in a can and then writing candy on it and being like, here, and everyone's like, dude, free candy? This is so nice. This guy, just eating it up, like, this guy is awesome. Dude, my friend, he was just like giving me this awesome brown candy. It was just the best candy I've ever had, just sharing it around and being like, dude, we love this. This is so nice, just because of the candy sign on it.
Right,
That's
yeah, of course. Basically.
That is basically what happened.
Yeah.
It's just like on a little bit more of an adult level, but
Yeah,
it's the
but it
exact same
works.
thing.
Huh.
And it's way worse.
Yeah, it's way worse. Oh man.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, all your power has been taken away by this thing, but we call it the Patriot Act, so it sounds really good.
Yeah, voted
Yeah.
for it.
You better vote for it, or you're not a patriot.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is obviously really good anyway.
Yeah. Oh man.
No, it's a weird place.
It
Everywhere is weird though.
Yeah, that's true.
You guys.
How
are
is it
really-
in Norway?
It's weird. My sister was telling me that, so we have like the same way you have state politicians and then you have federal politicians. We have like small communas that have their own or like small like what's the like territories kind of like Canada.
Right.
So we have local elections for those and local representatives, and then we have a federal representative, and it's all on a way smaller scale because we're like 5 million people.
Right.
But my sister was telling me that in Bergen, which is the town where I grew up, like recently there's been a local party that's like all for reducing the amount of road tax, and that's their only case, and they've like suddenly came out of nowhere and gained like 10% of the votes, and everyone's like, what is going on? This is the stupidest thing. The only case is this. They're supposed to like give us representatives that have something to say on like 100 different political issues, and their entire platform is, we want less tax on roads. That's the whole thing, and they get 10% of the vote because people are like, why are we paying more taxes on roads? Why is this happening? I don't want that to happen. Paying more. I just want to drive, man. I don't want to pay any. Let's get rid of this.
That's impressive.
Oh, yeah, and it's so benign. It's not even laughable. If you want to get like serious about it.
Yeah.
It's just like, come on. That's why I'm not into politics.
That's true. I'm not very into politics either.
Yeah, it's like we talked about eliminating negative influences. Following politics is a negative influence.
It is. I was I followed politics a lot more when I was in high school, and it was just such a drain on my mental health.
Yeah.
And I got here, and surprisingly, no, I feel like it's not as political as most places. Like,
Yeah.
UC Berkeley is super political.
Sure it is.
But UC Santa Barbara, people are just a lot more chill. Like,
Dude,
you don't.
that's what I love about this place.
Yeah, right? People don't get into political conversations for the sake of being at each other's throats,
Yeah.
which I feel like is what happens at Berkeley. But yeah, that I've been a lot happier since I've been able to not have to deal with aggressively political people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not just political, just people, any negative influences that it's like, it's not any negative influence whatsoever.
Mhm.
It's just the negative influences where you're not making a difference.
Yeah.
That's the thing for me.
I feel like that, again, that's a lot of what's happening in politics now. People are actively complaining, but doing zero to change anything.
Yeah.
If you want something done, you have to do something about it. If people are actively complaining about, like, some book doesn't have representation they want, they can still write a book that has the representation they want.
Yeah.
Or
even if you don't do that, you can at least have conversations with people about your experience. And you could be like, hey, I have this unique experience and I never see this in books, and it would be interesting as a character. Maybe you could inspire someone to write a book
That's
if you're not going to do
true.
it yourself. It's still a positive thing, whereas
Yeah.
if you're just complaining, I feel like complaining is worse than doing nothing.
Yeah, because I've definitely had conversations with people where they have a unique experience and it just completely changes my mind on something.
Yeah.
As opposed to if someone complained to me about certain thing not being talked about, I'd have less of a desire to know about it if I don't know anything, you know?
Yeah. Because that's like, you just get this negative stimulus from this area, and your brain is just going to be like, oh, that's a negative stimulus area. Okay, let's not go over there. And then it's like, are you actually spreading awareness of your cause, or are you just holding people away from your cause because of how complaining and annoying you are to deal with? That's why I can't stand people who think. One thing is to complain, but at least if you're going to complain, which I think can be okay, it's gotta be like, okay, I just gotta complain. Sorry about this, but here are some things that is bothering me, and I want to deal with this. I want to complain about it, and then maybe you are open to feedback, or maybe you're just getting it out of your system. Maybe you're complaining as a way to like fire yourself up to do something about it, but to complaining, I hate when people complain and they think like, I'm making such a difference by complaining. This smug like, oh my god, I'm such a virtuous person for complaining about this.
Yeah, that's not doing anything.
Yeah, not only is it not doing anything, it's actively hurting the cause.
That's true, because that's another way I think the polarization has happened. It's because both sides complain. One side sees the other side complaining about them, and then in a rebellious way they try to be that side more.
Yeah.
And then they like more fervently believe what they believe because the other side is complaining about them.
Yeah.
And it's just not helping anyone. What we would need is active discourse that's trying to be productive and trying to find a middle ground, because that'll help more than anything else.
Yeah. That is why I love dialogue so much. Just one-on-one conversations. Because you can really get into it with someone and get a hold of like what their experience is like and what they actually think. and that has just been it's been really helpful, and it's been really, I've just noticed how productive that has been, that approach. And people, I think, like, I don't follow news, I don't follow politics at all, because it's like the stoicism mindset of like, I can't change this, so, and it's negative, so there's no point in me being involved in this. If I'm gonna change politics, I'm not gonna do it through following politics now and commenting and writing to like whatever senator and protesting and stuff. That's not gonna help. If I wanna help politics, I'm gonna need to be in a position where I can actually understand the issues, and I'm actually interested and invested, and I want to make a change, and I have the resources and I have the position. And that's not realistic for me now. So there's no point in me. Nothing good can come for me of like following politics closely, pretty much.
Yeah.
Now. And the same with news. And people are like, "Oh, you don't watch the news, you don't pay attention." No, I don't want to like the news are just like, oh, 10 people were killed in a bombing, and then the next day 10 people were killed in a shooting, and then like a deer died, and then there's a parasite in the water, and none of this is helping me in any way. I'm not using the information to anything. I'm taking in lots of information, learning, using memory, using space, using time, and it's all negative, so it's affecting my mood, but it's also not helpful. It's not like, oh, I heard about this deer parasite, so now I'm prepared. It's in Kentucky. I'm not going there. Okay, I can do nothing about this.
Yeah.
Some amount of staying informed is good, but I think the things that are focused on in media are very often things you can't do anything about.
Yeah, because the media often is just trying to make money.
Yeah.
By spreading whatever they want to spread.
Yeah, and even when they are spreading important information that I want to be out there, it's not necessarily that I'm the right person for it. Like, if they're talking about the crisis in Ghana or whatever, then the people who are in a position to help the people in Ghana, they are the people who need to get the information. So it's good that the message is being broadcast, but that doesn't mean that I need to pay attention to it or that I need to engage with it if I'm not going to be able to help, or if I'm more productive helping someone else or doing something else. So that's my line of thinking on that. Just eliminating as much
Interesting.
As I can, pretty much. Do you have any like any negative influences that you keep around?
Ooh, that's a good question. Here, wait, hold that thought. I actually have to go to the bathroom, but I like that question.
You can think about it.
Yeah. Been having some long days.
Yeah. So let's end it on this then. What my question is, what if you keep any negative things around that you think are useful even though they're negative?
I have a couple friends. One of them oftentimes will go on walks and will just complain about things. And honestly, I mean, sure, that's negative, but also we have a lot of laughs along the way, and we can just often laugh about things. So it's not, I feel like it's not counterproductive. I mean, sure, we're just complaining about things and like other
you're having fun.
Negative people that we meet, and we're having fun, and we still have a lot of fun together. We don't just complain, we also have positive talks. So I don't think that's counterproductive. It's still sometimes fun to just complain about things, and it's just nice to get things out and have a friend that you can do that with. Another friend I have is similar, where we complain to each other a lot, but sometimes they just will complain for a long period of time, and I feel like that brings me down sometimes. But they're also just a super supportive friend. And I also feel like sometimes they're just having a bad time in that like month or so. So I shouldn't just cut that negativity out of my life, even though like just because that's a brief amount of time, you know,
Yeah.
as opposed to like sometimes people just have tough times, and in order to stay good friends, you help them through those tough times.
Yeah.
And just because they may be negative and bringing you down a little now doesn't mean they'll always be that way, and doesn't mean that's indicative of them as a person.
That is true. It's there's a huge difference between complaining and having fun and complaining and bringing negativity.
Mm-hmm.
And there's also a huge difference in like enduring someone who's going through something and then enabling someone's bad patterns and bad behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
Like if someone's actually having a real problem that they're trying to work through and you can be there and help them, that's productive, even though maybe it takes a toll on you as a person, or it is draining in some way. It like builds trust, it builds a relationship, and it helps them out. Or there's so many productive things about that. It's way worse when like enduring the bad behavior is the opposite of progress. When it's like, the fact that you're enduring this behavior means that I can do it more. So then it's like, you didn't like my complaining for 10 minutes, then I'm going to do 20 minutes next time. Then I'm going to do more complaining, complain even harder, because that's like what's being rewarded.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's for sure an important difference to be aware of.
Definitely.
Yeah. Well,
Are there any negative influences you keep in your life?
That's a good question.
You asked it.
Yeah, I realized that I was saying. What I mean is that I need to think about the answer, because I didn't. Which is also a very good exercise to do. Sometimes it's hard to. I ask weird questions of people, or unusual maybe, and sometimes I'm not always actively aware of what those questions feel like to be asked. So being asked questions back is like good, because now I'm like, oh, this has that effect that I didn't anticipate asking it. Like, or
I definitely do that, where I ask a question and I have no answer for it, and then they ask it back, and I'm like, oh, that's hard.
Yeah, I think I have some influences that are not negative. Like, I have a big one. I read comments on YouTube.
Oh, me too.
And it's like my younger brother, he is awesome, because he always gives me shit when I'm wrong about something, just unrelentingly. I'll get a new. He's like my harshest critic. So if I'll hold a speech, everyone will give me compliments in the family, and he'll be like, yeah, if you're gonna do that kind of speech, you want to be way more tight, and you want to like. And he's always like super negative, not even like well, yeah, it was okay, but you need to do. He's immediately like that. And like if I'm buying a new piece of clothing, he's like, yeah, it's all right. Or like, nah, I don't think that'll gonna work. That's gonna work. Or like, yeah, fine if you want it. He's so he's super good at like giving me shit when I need it. And he is like. He is several times remarking like on my behavior of like reading comments and responding to comments, and like being like, dude, are you aware of how stupid this is? Or like talking in-game chat on League of Legends or whatever. It's so stupid. It's and I know it's stupid, and I know there's no point in doing it, and I know there's only gonna be a negative outcome. That's not always true for comments, but for commenting in the league chat, that's the case. Unless you're doing it very tactically. The best thing you can do in that game, which is also like what a lot of good high-ranking players do, is they just immediately mute the chat when they enter it, so they can't be affected by it if they're in a lower division. Because like, just reading the comment that is like, oh my god, this person is so wrong and they don't understand something. I have this rush of emotion to like explain to them how they're wrong.
Yeah.
And it's just incredibly counterproductive.
Oh god.
But
Yeah.
that's a negative thing I have that I still sometimes do. But there will be funny and cool comments in YouTube though. I feel like YouTube comments get a lot of flack, but there are some pretty smart comments around too.
That's true.
And sometimes looking at how people react to something can give you like a little bit of a perspective or a new like appreciation for, oh, they noticed something about like what it was talking about that was like I didn't think about as that significant, but actually was, when I'm thinking about it more, like adds a little bit of a different layer to it. So I think there is something to be said for reading comments, even though it does have the lame tendency of being like a magnet for negativity and stupid people who, especially if you get into arguments with these people, it's terrible.
Right. Some people just like to argue.
Yeah. Well, I think we just did like a 3-hour podcast.
Wow.
Or somewhere around that. That's what
That
Joe
is
Rogan always
impressive.
says, and it's like, oh my god, we just went through a time machine, and I
Yeah.
totally get what he means. 'Cause I have so many more topics that we
Yeah,
could
I
go
know.
off
We
on.
could just go on forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, if you're ever in Norway,
Okay.
dude,
I will.
you gotta call me up.
I'll keep you up on that offer.
Yeah, and you gotta be like, yo, I'm coming to Norway, and I'm gonna be like, where are you going? You're gonna be like Oslo, and I'm gonna be like, fuck, I don't live in Oslo, but I'm gonna fly down. We're gonna go to Oslo. It's gonna be sick, and we're gonna record episode 2 of the podcast.
All right, let's do it.
Yeah, this is in how many years? This is in like 6 years.
6
8
years.
How old are you?
I'm 19.
Are you only 19?
Yeah, I'm only 19.
Dang,
How old are you?
I'm 23.
Oh wow.
Well, I always just assume people around me are about my age.
Makes sense.
So I was like, I felt like you were maybe like 97-ish, but you're more 99, right?
Oh yeah, yeah,
You're 99?
yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, you're the young generation, but it's not 2000.
That's true.
99
Not
I
quite
can do
there.
it.
I was born November of 1999,
Yeah.
so I had 2 more months to go.
You still did exist in the 90s.
I still exist in the 90s technically.
Yeah.
Were you 95?
Yeah, 95.
Uh.
So I've been like this is so weird, but I've been in like my previous dorm, I've just had this experience of every time the new arrivals come in, because when I started the 96ers were the new freshest ones, because I had an in-between year
Right.
on my folk high school.
Uh-huh.
And then there was like the next year the 97 kids were in, and I was like, these people are as young as my brother. Oh my god, I'm like significantly older than them, because I've always been like older brother. You get that? Okay, I'm actually older than these people.
Oh, okay.
And then there were 98, and I was like, oh my god, I just wrapped my mind, after 1 year, I just wrapped my mind around 97 people living with me, and now there's 98 people living with me,
Yeah.
and then the next year it's 99, and I was still just as surprised. And then it's going to be 2000, and I'm going to be
man.
just as surprised then. I'm going to be like, oh my god, are there 2,000 people's 18 now?
I know. I met a girl who was just a year younger than me, and she's like, yeah, I was born in 2000, and I was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Like, even that's weird for me. It's a year younger, but it's like an entire different millennium that they were born in.
It's actually not insane at all. It's just a different year that's called something else, but it feels
I
just
know,
insane.
but it feels insane.
It feels weird.
Even though, like, 2 months later, I would have been in a completely different time. It's strange.
Yeah.
It's like I was born just on the cusp of this big change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is that there has been a huge change in society in the shift from the 90s to the 2000s.
100%.
It's been night and day. Like,
Mm-hmm.
go back from now, going back to 1991 when you were born, the world
Yeah.
looked so different.
Mm-hmm.
And not just like in what was currently going on, but just the level of technology and everything.
Yeah.
Our
And
understanding
there's
of what
so much
what's
more that's going to happen in
Yeah.
our lifetime. It's insane to think about just what's happened so far.
Yeah, it's completely crazy.
Yeah.
So yeah, in 2025, That's when you'll accidentally go to Norway.
Accidentally
forget
go
you
to-
had this conversation.
Okay.
And then when you get there, be like, oh, hey, by the way, I'm in Oslo, and I'm gonna be like, cool, I'm not in
All
Norway,
right.
but let's still record a podcast.
Yeah.
Sound good?
Yeah. Sounds good.
Nice.
Maybe I'll try and study abroad there.
You should.
I should.
Well, thank you for coming on.
Yes.
And
thank you for having me.
Being
I look
willing
forward to listening to more of your podcasts in the future.
Yeah, I hope I can keep making them because
Yeah.
they're fun to do.
They are.
Just need to find good conversationalists like yourself.
Definitely.
Definitely.
Thank you for the conversation.
Well, thank
I
you.
didn't mean that in a
I know
in
it.
too egotistical of a way.
Well, that's it for the podcast. Thanks for anyone. If anyone's listening to this, I'm going to be really impressed. Send me a message if you're listening to this. Okay, bye guys.